quiet introduction, the night settles gently over medieval Japan, and the world seems to exhale. The last traces of daylight fade behind distant hills, and a soft indigo hush spreads across the landscape. Lanterns flicker to life one by one, their warm glow drifting across wooden homes, narrow paths, and still gardens. Crickets begin their steady chorus, weaving a slow, calming rhythm into the cool air. Everything moves unhurriedly, as though time has decided to rest for a while. The listener is invited to drift with it, to settle into this serene moment, to feel the quiet unfold like a long, steady breath. Everything is slow now. Everything is gentle. And so the night begins. A tranquil village at dusk. As evening deepens, a small village rests at the edge of a wide plain, surrounded by rice fields that lie flat and dark beneath the moonlight. The low wooden houses sit close to one another, their thatched roofs softly outlined in silver. Smoke from supper fires rises lazily, carrying with it the faint aroma of miso and simmered vegetables, which still lingers even after the meal is long finished. Along the main path, the packed earth feels cool under the feet of those who wander home from the last tasks of the day. A farmer wipes his palms on his worn trousers, his hands rough from work in the paddies, but now relaxed, no longer gripping tools or bending toward the earth. In the soft dimness, he walks at an easy pace, listening to the distant sound of water flowing through the irrigation channels. It is constant, rhythmic, like a gentle whisper threading through the evening air. Near one home, an old wooden bucket sits beside a shallow well, its rope swaying slightly with the night breeze. The boards creak faintly, the sound nearly lost beneath the rustle of bamboo leaves. A lantern glows beside the doorway, and its light flickers across the smooth grain of the wooden frame, catching on the tiny imperfections carved by years of weather and touch. Inside, families settle into calm routines. A woman folds worn linens near the hearth, her movements slow and deliberate. A young boy sits nearby grinding ink on a small stone, preparing for lessons the next morning. The quiet scrape of the ink stick moving in circles fills the room with a soft, steady rhythm. Outside, a cat pads across the veranda and curls itself into a warm corner, blinking slowly, already drifting toward sleep. The village is peaceful, no hurried voices, no clatter or rush, only the gentle murmur of nighttime, the wind shifting the bamboo, the soft step of someone carrying in the last of the firewood, the quiet settling of wooden beams cooling after the warmth of the day. Lantern light spills onto the ground in small golden pools, and the shadows sway with a slow, graceful ease. Beyond the houses, the rice fields stretch out like a calm mirror of the sky. A thin mist gathers above them, forming a soft veil illuminated by the rising moon. Frogs sound out from the edges of the water, their calls low and melodic. The fields themselves barely move, only the faintest ripple showing where a breeze passes over the water's surface. Further off, the silhouette of a shrine gate stands quiet against the hillside, its presence steady and reassuring. In the distance, a lone traveler approaches the village road. His straw sandals brush lightly against the dirt, and his travel cloak, made from layered hemp, shifts softly with every step. He walks with no urgency, guided by the muted glow of the stars and the faint lanterns ahead. His journey pauses as he reaches the first wooden bridge. There he slows even further, looking out over the canal below. The water moves calmly beneath, reflecting the pale moonlight like stretched silk. He rests his hand on the railing, feeling the smoothness worn into the wood by countless hands before his. Inside one of the nearby homes, a pot of tea sits on a low table, releasing a thin ribbon of steam. The aroma of roasted barley tea fills the air, warm and comforting. An elderly couple sits quietly, sipping from small clay cups. They do not speak much, for conversation at this hour is rarely needed. The silence between them is familiar, steady, shaped by many years of shared nights just like this one. The only sounds are their gentle breaths and the occasional shifting of fabric as one adjusts their seat on the tatami mats. A short distance away, children already lie under cotton blankets, listening to the nighttime sounds as their eyelids grow heavy. The wooden shutters are slightly open, letting a thin streak of moonlight stretch across the floor. Dust motes drift slowly in the beam, turning lazily as if carried by a current too small to feel. Outside their window, Fireflies blink among the tall grasses, tiny lanterns moving in their own soft rhythm. As the night deepens, the village grows even quieter. The last doors slide shut with a muted click. The lantern flames shrink lower, their glow turning soft and rounded. The breeze cools, carrying with it the distant scent of pine from the forested hills. From somewhere far down the path, a lone flute plays a wandering melody, slow, wandering, barely rising above a whisper. It lingers for a few breaths, then fades away again, leaving the air even calmer than before. The village settles fully into night, wrapped in a blanket of gentle stillness. Every home, every path, every field seems to breathe at the same slow pace. It is a moment suspended, unhurried, inviting the listener to rest within it. Everything is quiet. Everything is soft. Everything continues peacefully into the night. The evening deepens slowly, as though the sky itself is reluctant to surrender to full darkness. Over the small village, the last hues of rose and amber dissolve into deeper shades of blue, spreading in calm, steady layers. A slender crescent moon lifts above the horizon, pale and serene, casting a gentle sheen across the rooftops. Its light touches the thatched coverings, revealing threads of straw that shimmer faintly, each one holding the warmth of the day but now cooling in the night's embrace. The air carries a mild freshness, the scent of damp earth rising from the rice paddies that stretch outward in every direction. These paddies form a quilted landscape, each square bordered by narrow ridges of soil. Their waters rest still and reflective, so perfectly smooth that they capture the moon's glow as though holding a quiet secret. Here and there, the surface quivers when a frog breaks the silence with a soft splash or when a tiny fish shifts beneath the mirrored layer. These movements are unhurried, subtle, blending seamlessly into the tranquil rhythm of the night. Along the village's narrow path, the earth is cool and firm, shaped by countless footsteps that have passed over it throughout the seasons. Earlier, it carried the bustle of farmers returning from their long day's work, but now it lies mostly undisturbed. A few villagers move along it at a leisurely pace, their sandals brushing softly against the ground. Each step produces a muffled tap, softened further by the gentle wind weaving between the homes. A wooden gate creaks lightly as a young woman closes it for the night. She pauses for a moment, resting her hand on the frame. Beneath her fingertips, the wood is smooth from years of touch, its surface marked by faint lines and knots. She lingers there, breathing in the faint scent of the nearby bamboo grove. The long, slender leaves sway gently, creating a soft rustling that blends with the distant croaking of frogs. The sound is soothing, like a low lullaby carried by the wind. Inside the homes, the warm glow of lanterns spills into the rooms, illuminating woven tatami mats and low wooden tables. Shadows gather softly in corners but remain gentle and unthreatening, shaped by the flickering lantern light. In one home, a man carefully adjusts the wick of a small oil lamp. The flame steadies, casting a warm halo that glides across the clay cups arranged neatly beside a pot of barley tea. The tea has steeped long enough that its scent has filled the room with a comforting roasted aroma, mingling with the faint smokiness from the hearth. An elderly woman sits on a cushion nearby, threading simple stitches through a piece of cloth. Her hands move slowly, deliberately, guided by the memory of decades spent practicing this quiet craft. Each pull of the thread creates a soft whisper, a near-silent rhythm that pairs beautifully with the peaceful atmosphere surrounding her. From time to time, she lifts her head to listen to the sounds outside. A distant dog barking once before settling, the creak of a nearby cartwheel adjusting as the night air cools its wooden frame, the sigh of the wind brushing past the shutters. A group of children, though tired, try to stay awake a bit longer. They sit clustered near the veranda, watching fireflies drift lazily through the twilight. The soft glow of each little light pulses slowly, illuminating tiny sections of the air for just a moment before dimming again. The children whisper to each other, careful not to disturb the calm of the night. Their voices rise and fall like gentle ripples on a pond, small and tender. Eventually, their mother slides open the door with a quiet swish. She smiles faintly and gestures them inside. The children obey without protest, their tired bodies moving with drowsy steps. Soon they curl beneath warm cotton blankets, the soft fabric settling over them like a protective mist. Outside, the village's communal well stands beneath an old wooden canopy. The bucket rests on its side, still damp from earlier use. A faint shimmer of moonlight reflects off the water pooled inside the bucket's rim. Nearby, a ladle hangs from a hooked beam, gently swaying as the night breeze wraps around it. The soft tap of the ladle against the beam produces a quiet, almost melodic sound. A villager passing by pauses instinctively, listening to its delicate rhythm before continuing on his way. Beyond the cluster of houses, the fields widen into open space. Here, the night feels even more expansive. The breeze moves freely, carrying with it the subtle fragrance of distant pine forests and the faint metallic tang of river water. The sound of the river reaches the village in fragments, a gentle hush, a slow swirling, a barely noticeable shift. But those who listen closely find comfort in its steady consistency. Further down the path, the traveling merchant who arrived earlier continues to rest at the wooden bridge. The railing beneath his hand has cooled, and he takes a slow breath, appreciating the quiet he rarely finds during his journeys. Lantern light from a nearby home reflects faintly on the water below, stretching into elongated ripples that fade before reaching the river's bend. The merchant closes his eyes for a moment, letting the night sound settle into his thoughts. When he opens them again, the moon has risen a little higher, its glow now brushing the tops of the trees in the distance. Within another home, a father and his teenage daughter sit across from each other, sharing a simple evening ritual. He sharpens a hoe with a slow, steady motion. The rasp of the tool against the sharpening stone is soft and controlled. Across from him, his daughter grinds ink for her writing. The stone beneath the ink stick is cool, smooth, and slightly concave, shaped by years of careful use. The repetition of her circular motion creates a whispering scrape, subtle and meditative. Together, the sounds blend into a tranquil harmony that mirrors the stillness outside. Over the village, fireflies continue their slow drifting, painting faint trails in the dark. The stars above shine quietly, as though reluctant to disturb the peace below. A soft glow from distant homes twinkles between trees, offering small signs of life without breaking the night's serenity. Every part of the village seems to lean into the quiet, inviting restfulness to take hold. It is a night without haste. A night where even thoughts move slowly, drifting like the lantern glow across wooden beams and tatami mats. Everything breathes softly. Everything settles into gentle rhythm. Everything continues, calm and unhurried, beneath the watchful moon. The stillness of the samurai residence night settles even more deeply around the village, and just beyond its edge, a samurai residence rests in a hush that feels almost suspended in time. The compound is modest, not grand, yet its presence carries a quiet dignity. Wooden walls rise in clean lines, their surfaces smoothed by the touch of countless seasons. The roof tiles glimmer faintly beneath the moon's soft glow, collecting threads of silver light that look like they have been painted on by the night itself. A narrow path leads toward the entrance, bordered by low stone lanterns. Their flickering flames produce a warm, wavering halo, gently illuminating the moss that grows between the stones. The moss is thick, cushiony, its deep green darkened by the cool air. The lantern light glides over it in subtle waves, making it appear almost like a quiet sea at rest. Small pebbles crunch softly underfoot as one approaches the wooden threshold. The wooden gate stands slightly ajar, never fully closed during peaceful nights like this. Its hinges, though old, make only the faintest sound when touched by the breeze, a soft, sighing creak, as though the wood itself remembers to breathe. Beyond the gate lies a quiet courtyard, raked into gentle patterns. The sand forms soft ripples, each line carefully shaped earlier in the evening by a watchful hand. These patterns are undisturbed now, unchanged by wind or movement, resting beneath the cool, bluish light of the moon. A single pine tree rises near the center of the courtyard. Its branches extend outward in slow, purposeful sweeps, each needle touched with dew. When the breeze flows through, the faintest whisper escapes the tree, a low, soothing murmur, like an old friend speaking in half-forgotten tones. The scent of pine mingles with the clean night air, subtle yet unmistakable, adding a comforting depth to the peaceful atmosphere of the compound. Inside the residence, the subtle glow of lanterns shines through rice paper doors. their pale surfaces seem almost translucent, the gentle light behind them forming indistinct silhouettes that shift with serene movements. A samurai sits within, his posture relaxed, no armor tightening his shoulders tonight. His clothing is simple, a light robe tied loosely at the waist, its cotton soft and familiar against his skin. He sits before a low table, polishing his blade with steady, unhurried motions. The blade itself lies across a folded cloth, its metal reflecting the lantern light in long, delicate streaks. His hand moves with a slow rhythm, each gesture deliberate, respectful. The soft rasp of the cloth against steel blends seamlessly into the stillness around him. It is not a sound of preparation for battle, but one of ritual, of quiet care, a routine that calms the mind as much as it maintains the weapon. Near him, a pot of tea sits over a small charcoal brazier. The faint crackle of the charcoal ember provides a subtle warmth, a gentle counterpoint to the coolness drifting in through the open door. From the pot escapes a light, fragrant steam carrying notes of green tea leaves, earthy and fresh. The room fills with that gentle aroma, settling around him like a comforting veil. He periodically lifts the teapot, pouring a small measure into a clay cup, savoring it in slow sips. The warmth travels through him gradually, easing the tension that lingers from the day's duties. Further inside, his wife tends to small tasks with an easy grace. She folds garments with methodical care, smoothing each layer with her hand before placing it beside a wooden chest. The sound of her hands brushing across the fabric is quiet, soft as the rustling of paper. She works with no urgency, letting her movements match the slowed rhythm of the night. Occasionally, she glances toward the open doorway, watching fireflies drift near the edge of the veranda, their lights blinking gently like distant stars brought close. In another room, their young daughter practices calligraphy under candlelight. Her brush glides across the paper, producing slow, deliberate strokes. Each character forms with patience, shaped by practiced hands and a calm mind. The faint sound of the brush tip sweeping the surface creates a soothing, rhythmic whisper. She pauses between lines to steady her breathing, letting the quiet of the house settle into her posture. The candle flickers slightly beside her, casting a warm glow that outlines her concentration in soft, golden tones. A sliding door opens gently as the samurai steps into the courtyard. His bare feet touch the cool wooden veranda, and from there he descends onto the stone path. He moves without haste, each footstep cushioned by the damp earth. He approaches the pine tree, tracing its silhouette with his gaze. The branches stand against the starlit sky, their shape both deliberate and wild, like a quiet guardian of the home. He pauses beneath its shadow, letting his hand drift across the rough bark. The texture is cool and firm, grounding him in the quiet assurance of the night. From this vantage point, he can see the full breadth of the courtyard, the patterned sand, the lantern glow, the faint shimmer of dew settling upon the stones. A cricket chirps nearby, its small voice steady and unbroken. Farther off, an owl hoots once, softly, before falling silent again. These sounds knit the night together, creating a gentle tapestry of life that continues quietly beneath the stars. He returns indoors after some time, sliding the door closed with a soft wooden click. The residence feels warm compared to the outside air. His daughter's brush still moves across the paper, her focus unwavering. His wife now prepares bedding in the main room, unfurling soft quilts and adjusting their corners with slow, practiced motions. The rustle of the fabric is tender, like the breath of a person drifting into sleep. A small wooden water basin rests near the entrance. Its surface is still, reflecting the dim lantern light in soft, wavering shapes. Before settling for the night, the samurai kneels beside it, dipping his hands into the cool water. The ripples spread outward in smooth, circular waves, catching the faint glow of the room. He wipes his hands gently on a woven cloth, then rises with an unhurried calm. The entire home feels suspended in a gentle rhythm. Every movement, every sound, every breath is slow and deliberate. The residence, like the village beyond it, has surrendered to the softness of night. Nothing rushes, nothing disturbs. It is a place where even thoughts flow quietly, where the mind finds rest without seeking it, and where the stillness feels like a warm cloak draped gently across the world. The night deepens into an even quieter shade of blue around the samurai residence, settling upon the compound like a soft, unbroken breath. The air has cooled further, and with it comes a subtle clarity that makes every small sound seem more distinct, yet still so gentle that nothing disturbs the profound calm. The moon is higher now, its pale glow stretching farther across the rooftops, washing each tile with a powdery sheen of silver that seems to glow from within. The path leading to the residence feels almost like an invitation to stillness. The stones embedded in the earth retain the faint warmth of the day, though they cool slowly, radiating a mild, fading heat upward in soft waves. Moss creeps around their edges, thick and velvety, its texture so plush it looks as though it could muffle even the quietest footstep. The stone lanterns lining the walkway flicker in long, slow pulses, their light never abrupt, never sharp, only a calm, warm glow that pools softly around their bases. A thin wisp of smoke rises from one of the lanterns as leftover oil burns steadily, its scent faint and earthy. The breeze catches the smoke and stretches it into a narrow ribbon, guiding it between the lanterns before it finally dissolves into the open night. The air carries more than just the smell of burning oil. It holds the fragrance of damp soil, the clean scent of distant cedar, and hints of fresh water from a hidden creek not far beyond the residence walls. The wooden gate remains slightly open, just as before. But the way the moonlight touches it now makes each panel appear smoother, more luminous. The alternating patterns of wood grain seem to shift subtly with every flicker of lantern light, giving the gate a quiet, breathing presence. When the wind reaches it, the gate shifts with a muted murmur, a sound so soft it barely rises above the rustle of the leaves overhead. This murmuring creek has been part of the residence for generations, familiar to every ear that has lived within these walls. Upon entering the courtyard, the sand garden reveals even more delicate textures beneath the moon's glow. The raked patterns have become sharper in places where shadows fall, softening where the silver light touches them directly. The lines curve in slow, flowing arcs that resemble gentle waves, as though the courtyard itself holds a memory of the sea, captured and calmed. The sand glimmers faintly, dotted with tiny crystals that catch the light when the breeze shifts them just a little. Everything here feels intentional, touched with quiet reverence. The pine tree at the heart of the courtyard now seems more prominent, its dark needles forming a silhouette against the shimmering sky. Dew has formed more heavily on the branches, and when a light gust passes through, the droplets tremble, catching slivers of moonlight before falling silently onto the earth below. The scent of pine has deepened, cooler now, more resinous, as though the tree exhales with the night. Its presence feels grounding, steady, almost ancient. Anyone standing beneath it would sense a comforting stillness, like leaning against something timeless and patient. Inside the residence, the glow of lanterns remains soft and constant. The rice paper panels spread that warm light gently across each room, turning hard edges into rounded shapes and shadows into tender veils. Footsteps inside are few and far between, each one cushioned by tatami mats that release a faint, hushed sound beneath careful movement. The samurai continues his quiet work at the low table, though now the motions are even slower, as if the night itself guides his pace. His blade lies perfectly still upon the cloth, reflecting the glow of nearby lanterns in gracefully curved streaks. He runs the cloth along the length of the metal with patient, practiced strokes. Each pass is a meditation, a grounding ritual that centers his thoughts. The steel, though sharp, seems gentle beneath his touch, its cool surface responding with soft gleams. When he pauses, he reaches toward the small pot of tea that sits above the charcoal brazier. The ember within glows a soft, steady orange, warming the air around it. A faint crackle escapes from time to time, subtle enough that it blends into the rest of the quiet. The steam rising from the teapot spirals upward in slow, delicate wisps, dispersing gradually into the rafters. He pours another small serving into his clay cup, the sound of the liquid meeting the vessel soft and soothing. He drinks in small sips, letting the warmth settle deep within him. In the adjoining room, his wife moves with graceful, measured ease as she continues her gentle tasks. She smooths each fold of fabric with the back of her hand, feeling its texture shift under her fingers. The linens are cool at first touch, but gradually warm beneath her palms. She pauses from time to listen, absorbing the soft creaks of the house, the faint echo of a distant insect call, the gentle rhythm of her husband's polishing cloth. These familiar sounds create a cocoon of quiet contentment that fills the residence. Her eyes drift toward the veranda, where a handful of fireflies drift in the thin night air. One blinks close to the open door, then drifts back into the darkness, leaving behind a brief, glowing imprint on the memory. The fireflies move slowly now, their gentle lights flickering like a heartbeat that syncs itself with the steady calm of the night. Their daughter sits immersed in her calligraphy practice. Her posture is attentive yet relaxed, her breathing deep and even. The brush she holds is soft and fine, its bristles absorbing ink that has been ground to the perfect consistency. She dips the brush once more, and as she lifts it from the ink stone, a thin sheen of black gathers at the tip. When she draws it across the rice paper, the line flows smoothly, widening and tapering in response to the slightest shift of her wrist. The soft whisper of brush against paper pairs with the quiet flicker of candlelight beside her, forming a gentle symphony that fills the room with serenity. The samurai eventually rises, sliding open the door with a smooth, practiced motion. The wooden panel glides along its track without resistance, creating a low, velvety sound. Stepping onto the veranda, he feels the immediate coolness of the night air envelop him. It carries a crispness that brushes lightly against his skin, contrasting with the warm interior he has just left behind. His bare feet settle onto the wooden boards, which are cool and slightly damp from the evening air. He steps down into the courtyard once more. The sand shifts subtly beneath his weight, giving way in soft, muffled crunches. He moves toward the pine tree, taking deliberate, unhurried steps. When he reaches the trunk, he places his hand gently upon the bark. It is rough and ridged, the grooves cool beneath his fingers. He stands still for a moment, listening to the soft sway of the branches high above him. The whisper of needles shifting sounds like tiny brushes sweeping the air. From this vantage point, the entire courtyard reveals itself in its tranquil composition. The lanterns flicker steadily, casting elongated shapes across the raked sand. Tiny specks of dew shimmer on the stones, each reflecting a faint glint of moonlight. The night creatures continue their quiet chorus, crickets chirping with rhythmic ease, an owl releasing a distant, muted call, the subtle hum of insects drifting in from the nearby forest. After some time, he returns inside. The sliding door closes behind him without haste, the wood meeting its frame with a gentle, reassuring click. The residence seems even warmer now, filled with soft light and the faint aroma of tea and pine. His wife has finished arranging the bedding, each quilt laid out neatly, each pillow fluffed and placed with care. The rustle of the quilts creates a soothing lull in the stillness. Their daughter sets down her brush, satisfied with her final strokes. The candle beside her burns low, its flame leaning slightly toward the open doorway as though drawn to the cool night air. The family moves through the house with soft, measured steps, letting the quiet guide them into the flow of evening's end. The water basin remains near the entrance, its surface perfectly undisturbed until the samurai kneels beside it once more. When his hands dip into the water, the surface trembles in slow, concentric ripples that radiate outward, reflecting wavering shapes of lantern light. The coolness is refreshing, inviting a sense of calm that reaches deep into the body. The residence breathes with them, settling deeper into the night. Every corner, every doorway, every beam of wood seems infused with a gentle tranquility that only grows richer as the hours pass. It is the kind of stillness that invites the mind to settle, the heart to slow, and the night to wrap itself softly around anyone who rests within these walls. The quiet temple on the hillside far beyond the village and the samurai residence, the land rises gently into low, forested hills where a small Buddhist temple rests in a cradle of trees. The temple is simple, humble, shaped not for grandeur, but for harmony with the mountain that shelters it. At night, it becomes almost indistinguishable from its surroundings, merging with the dark wooden trunks, the sloping earth, and the soft blankets of shadow that settle along the hillside. Only the faint glow of a single lantern near the entrance marks its presence, flickering like a distant star caught among the branches. A narrow stone path leads up to the temple, winding gently through the woods. The stones are uneven, smoothed by countless footsteps from monks, travelers, villagers, and wanderers seeking quiet counsel. Moss grows between the cracks, thick and springy, so that every footstep lands with a muted softness. Tonight, the path is touched by long bands of moonlight that filter through the tall cedar trees overhead. The branches sway just enough to let the light move, shifting in slow, graceful patterns that drift across the stones like pale water. The air on the hillside is cooler than in the village below. It carries a faint sharpness from pine resin, mingled with the deep, earthy scent of damp soil. Leaves rustle in soft murmurs, each movement gentle and unhurried. Night insects hum in a subtle chorus, their voices rising and falling in waves that roll through the forest like breath. Occasionally, the distant, hollow call of a deer echoes through the trees before fading again into stillness. As one approaches the temple gate, a wooden torii stands quietly beneath the moonlit canopy. The wood is aged and weathered, its color darkened by time. Yet its presence feels unwavering, a silent guardian of the path that leads inside. A small paper charm hangs from the side beam, its edges fluttering softly with the breeze. It creates the faintest whispering sound, so light it feels almost imagined. The charm has been replaced many times over the years, yet it always carries the same handwritten blessing for peace, written by the temple's oldest monk. Just beyond the torii, the temple grounds open into a small clearing. The earth is flat here, shaped carefully over generations. Pebbles spread in thin layers across the ground, crunching softly underfoot. To one side stands a wooden water basin, fed by a bamboo spout. At this hour, the water flows slowly, each drop falling into the basin with a delicate, measured tap. The sound echoes lightly, filling the clearing with a rhythmic cadence that feels ancient and steady. The water inside the basin ripples gently with each drop, its surface reflecting the moon in fragmented circles. Near the entrance of the main hall, a single lantern glows behind a wooden lattice window. Its light is subtle, giving the warm impression of a quiet hearth. The lattice casts delicate geometric shadows on the wooden floor inside, shaping the space into a calm interplay of dark and light. The door to the hall is partially open, inviting the night breeze to slip inside and stir the faint scent of incense that lingers from earlier prayers. Inside, the temple is nearly silent. Tatami mats stretch across the floor in neat rows, their woven surfaces giving off a faint grassy scent. A small bronze bell rests near the altar, its surface cool and smooth, shaped by countless touches. The altar itself is modest, decorated with a simple wooden statue of a bodhisattva. The statue's expression is serene, its eyes lowered, the face shaped into a gentle calm that mirrors the entirety of the temple surroundings. A thin stick of incense still smolders beside it, releasing a slow ribbon of smoke that twists upward in delicate spirals before dissolving into the rafters. On this quiet night, one monk sits near the doorway. His figure is still, back straight, robes loose around his shoulders. His breathing moves in slow, measured waves, syncing with the distant drip of water from the basin outside. His eyes are half closed, gazing toward the courtyard without focusing on anything in particular. The gentle breeze touches his sleeve, moving it softly like a slow tide. Beside him, a small oil lamp casts a calm glow, illuminating the gentle textures of his robe and the fine wrinkles of age around his eyes. His wooden prayer beads rest in his hands, the smooth, rounded grains passing between his fingertips one by one. Each bead makes a soft, muted click as it touches the next, creating a rhythm that is almost too faint to hear, but easy to feel. In another room, a younger monk sweeps the wooden floorboards with a straw broom. His movements are unhurried, almost meditative. The bristles of the broom whisper against the wood, pushing small motes of dust into neat lines before guiding them gently outside. He stops occasionally to adjust his lantern, sliding it a little farther along the floor to keep the light near his work. When he pauses, the temple returns to complete stillness, except for the soft, chanting hum of the insects outside. The courtyard garden behind the temple rests in quiet depth. A few carefully shaped shrubs cast rounded shadows, their branches trimmed meticulously. A small stone pagoda stands to the side, its surfaces cool to the touch, collecting beads of dew that glimmer under the moon. A koi pond sits near the edge of the garden, its water perfectly still. The fish beneath the surface drift slowly in half-sleep, their bodies gliding with gentle curves. Now and then, one flicks its tail, sending ripples across the pond that reflect moonlight in long, stretching rings. Above the temple, the sky expands in vast stillness. The stars shimmer faintly but steadily, their light unaffected by the movement of the night. The ridge of the hill forms a calm silhouette against the horizon, rising in a smooth, unbroken line. Everything above the temple seems to rest as deeply as everything below it. Inside the main hall, the older monk lifts the bronze bell at last. He holds it delicately, tipping it just enough for the small wooden striker to touch its side. The sound that follows is soft and round, a single note that hums into the space like a warm breath. It resonates quietly through the hall, lingering in the air, gently settling into the walls, the floor, the very stillness of the night. It is not loud. It does not disturb. It drifts outward as though carried on its own faint wings. The temple receives the sound without changing. The trees continue their slow rustling. The insects keep their steady hum. The small stream nearby flows in calm continuity. Nothing speeds up. Nothing breaks the peace. The hillside temple remains a quiet refuge, untouched by anything hurried or loud. It is a place where silence feels full, where the night feels soft and endless, where each breath seems to carry the weight of centuries of calm. And within that quiet, everything rests in harmony. The hillside temple rests even deeper into the embrace of night, as though the darkness has wrapped it in a soft, protective cloak. Every contour of the wooden structure, every stone of the courtyard, every branch of the surrounding forest has quieted into a slower rhythm that feels almost timeless. The moon, now higher and fuller in its glow, spreads a gentle wash of silver over the entire hillside, creating soft gradients of light that move in and out of the trees with calm deliberation. The path leading up to the temple seems more ancient under this moonlight. Each stone feels older, more settled into the earth, as if it has been part of the landscape for hundreds of peaceful years. Moss thickens in patches, velvety and dark, cool to the touch. The stones hold subtle warmth underneath where the day's sun lingered, but most of that warmth is fading now, replaced by the chill of the descending night. The air moves slowly along the path, stirring faint scents of cedar and damp soil. Occasionally, a low murmur passes through the trees, leaves shifting as though they are sighing in sleep. The cedar trees tower silently above the path, their trunks rising like tall, ancient pillars. Their needles catch the moonlight in delicate clusters that shimmer faintly when the breeze passes through, creating tiny glints of white that appear and disappear like breaths. The forest seems to listen as one collective being, every rustle, every hum, every distant sound settling into a communal quiet that feels vast and serene. The wooden torii at the temple entrance stands as still and steady as the trees themselves. Its darkened wood is textured with the marks of time, faint cracks, whether smoothed grains, softened edges. It has endured countless storms, countless years of sunlight and snowfall, and now, under the soft glow of the moon, it feels like an anchor between the human world and the quiet mountain beyond. A single paper charm tied to its side flutters in slow motions, barely perceptible, its soft edges catching the moonlight as it turns ever so slightly with each breeze. Its inked characters, now slightly faded, speak of calm, compassion, and the wish for peaceful passage through the world. Even without reading them, one can feel the quiet intention they carry. Beyond the torii, the temple grounds widen into their gentle clearing. The pebbled earth spreads beneath the feet like a thin layer of muted sound. Each step upon it produces a soft crunch, subdued and comforting in a way that reinforces the stillness throughout the shrine. A bamboo ladle rests near the water basin, its smooth handle warm from the touch of many hands. The bamboo spout, angled carefully above the basin, releases slow droplets of fresh mountain water. Each drop falls with a delicate, measured sound, perfectly spaced, perfectly steady. The drip forms small ripples that move outward in slow rings, each one dissolving before the next forms. This quiet rhythm is ancient in its steadiness, a soft pulse within the temple grounds. The scent of water mixes with faint traces of incense that linger in the air. Earlier in the evening, monks burned sticks of sandalwood and pine resin, their fragrant smoke drifting through the temple halls, settling into the beams and floorboards. The remnants of that ritual remain now as a subtle fragrance carried in the cool night breeze, blending into the environment so gently that it becomes part of the air itself. Through the partially open door of the main hall, the warm, amber glow of lantern light spills outward, forming a soft rectangle on the wooden veranda. The sliding door's rice paper panels diffuse the light into gentle blurs, softening the sharpness of the shadows inside. The lantern light flickers with slow, steady pulses, reflecting off the polished surfaces of the interior and dancing faintly across the wooden beams. The air inside the hall is still and warm, a contrast to the crisp mountain air outside. The older monk sits close to the doorway, cloaked in the gentle folds of his robe. His expression is serene, eyes half-lidded as he gazes outward without truly focusing, simply observing the breathing rhythm of the night. His prayer beads continue to move through his fingers, each bead sliding with a quiet, rounded click that joins the chorus of gentle sounds surrounding the temple. His breath is deep, slow, evenly spaced, grounding the space around him with its warmth. The oil lamp beside him flickers faintly, the flame caught within a small glass cover that warms the air just above it. The soft halo it casts moves gently across the monk's sleeve, creating tiny waves of light along the folds of the fabric. The threads of his robe look textured and coarse up close, but under the lantern's glow, they seem softened, almost cloud-like. Deeper in the hall, the small wooden statue of the Bodhisattva rests atop the modest altar. In the lantern light, the statue's carved expressions appear softer, the gentle curve of the lips almost resembling a faint smile. Shadows settle into the subtle grooves of the carved robes, giving the figure a quiet depth as though it breathes very slowly along with the night. The incense stick beside the statue has burned nearly to its end, leaving a small spiral of smoke still rising in thin threads. The smoke twists gently upward, catching tiny fragments of light before disappearing into the darker beams of the ceiling. Even the absence of fresh incense feels calming, as though the room still holds its lingering warmth and fragrance. In the side room, the younger monk continues sweeping the wooden floors, though now his movements have become almost ceremonial. The broom glides across the boards in long, gentle arcs. Each stroke collects tiny dust particles that catch the lantern light in brief, delicate sparkles. He pauses often, not out of fatigue, but to appreciate the fullness of the silence around him. The rustling of the broom bristles fades when he stops, allowing the subtle tones of the forest to fill the room through the open windows. The courtyard garden behind the temple grows even quieter as night settles into its deepest hours. The koi pond lies undisturbed, its surface smooth as still glass. The fish beneath drift lazily, their gentle movements barely noticeable except when a soft tail flick reshapes the water into quiet ripples. The small stone pagoda standing near the pond glistens with dew, its surfaces shimmering faintly under the soft moonlight. Beyond the garden, the distant call of a night bird echoes once more, low, hollow, and lingering before it dissolves into the woods. The sound feels far away, softened by layers of trees and leaves that muffle it into a peaceful murmur. As the older monk raises the bronze bell again, he holds it with the same reverence he has shown for decades. His hand lifts the striker, pausing for just a breath before letting the wood touch the bronze with a soft, rounded tap. The sound rings through the hall in a slow, warm wave. It is gentle, resonant, never sharp, its vibration stretching outward across the courtyard, passing through the branches, brushing the surface of the pond, and drifting into the forests beyond. The bell's tone slowly fades, dissolving like mist into the quiet hillside. When it disappears fully, the silence that follows feels deeper, richer, as though the entire mountain has exhaled. Nothing stirs too quickly. Nothing breaks the fragile calm. The temple remains held in this peaceful, timeless stillness, an island of quiet contemplation under the wide, soft-spoken night sky. Night over the rice fields beyond the temple and the softly glowing village, the landscape opens into wide, tranquil expanses of rice fields that stretch toward the low horizon. At night, these fields transform into a shimmering mosaic of moonlit water, each plot reflecting the sky with quiet devotion. The boundaries between earth and sky blur here. The surface of the patties mirrors the drifting clouds, the pale glow of the moon, the faint shapes of distant trees, turning the world into layers of soft reflection, one upon another. The night air is cooler over the fields, open and spacious. It moves in long, gentle currents that glide across the water. Each breath of wind stirs the young rice shoots jutting above the surface, making them tremble in slow, delicate waves. These movements ripple across the patties like whispers, forming patterns that shift and merge with effortless grace. The slender leaves brush lightly against one another, creating a soft, rhythmic rustling that harmonizes with the steady chorus of nighttime insects. A narrow dirt path runs along the edges of the fields. The soil feels firm underfoot, packed by the weight of countless seasons of labor. It holds a faint warmth from the day, but is cool to the touch now, coated with a thin layer of nighttime dew. In places where the ground meets the water, small frogs have settled among the reeds. Their throats pulse gently as they release quiet croaks into the stillness, each sound carrying far across the open air. The calls are calm and slow, spaced out like deep, measured breaths. On one side of the fields, a wooden footbridge crosses a narrow irrigation channel. The channel, fed by a distant river, flows steadily even at this hour, carrying with it the cool, fresh scent of mountain water. The bridge creaks softly under its own wooden weight whenever the breeze shifts. Its planks, worn smooth by many footsteps, hold a soft sheen under the moonlight. Water flows beneath it with a hushed, steady sound, a peaceful accompaniment to the night, like a gentle stream of whispered conversation. Farther along the path, fireflies drift above the patties in slow, floating motions. Their small lights blink gently, rarely in sync, creating a field of tiny wandering stars close to the earth. Some hover low, almost touching the water. Others drift higher, weaving between the tender rice shoots. Their glow reflects upon the patty's still surface, doubling their quiet dance with shimmering echoes of light. The fireflies move unhurriedly, as if guided by the slow pulse of the night itself. A lone farmer walks the path at this late hour, though not for work, simply for the comfort of the landscape he knows so well. His sandals press lightly into the earth, leaving faint imprints that soften as dew gathers. He carries a lantern, its flame small and steady. The lantern's warm glow spills onto the path, illuminating the dust motes that drift lazily in the air. When he lifts the lantern, its light stretches farther, revealing more of the rippling rice stalks, each one gently bending to the breeze. He pauses on the footbridge, resting his hand on the railing. The wood is cool, slightly damp, and textured with grooves etched by years of use. Beneath him, the moving water glimmers with reflected moonlight, forming silvery threads that stretch and twist slowly with the current. The farmer watches the movement for a long moment, breathing quietly, letting the sounds of water and wind fold into the rhythm of his thoughts. The night feels expansive here, open yet comforting, like a deep, unbroken sigh spread across the land. In the distance, a cluster of trees stands at the edge of the fields. Their branches sway gently, forming a soft rustling that reaches the farmer in faint waves. The leaves shimmer as if brushed by the moonlight itself, creating subtle flickers that appear and vanish with each movement. A small shrine rests beneath one of the largest trees, a simple wooden structure, humble and unadorned. A tiny offering bowl sits before it, holding a handful of dried rice grains left earlier in the day. The offerings glint slightly under the night sky, reflecting the faint glow of fireflies that drift around the shrine. The irrigation channels weave through the fields in gentle lines, directing water to each section with calm precision. The flow is soft but persistent, producing a low, melodic murmur. When the breeze passes over the channels, the surface trembles, forming small, wavering patterns of light that shimmer like silver threads woven into the darkness. The water carries the cool scent of the river, mingled with the faint, earthy fragrance of the rice paddies. These scents blend into a soothing perfume that hangs lightly in the air. Near the center of the fields, a heron stands quietly in the shallow water. Its long legs create barely visible ripples as it shifts its weight. The bird remains almost completely still, its slender body illuminated in soft outlines by the moon. Its feathers shimmer faintly, catching the light in pale, gentle hues. Every so often, it tilts its head slightly, listening to the distant sounds of the night. Then it relaxes again, content to simply exist within the peaceful landscape. A soft mist begins to form along the surface of the paddies, rising where the cooler air meets the warmer water. The mist gathers gradually, settling low and thin, drifting in slow waves across the fields. It wraps around the rice shoots, clinging to the leaves in delicate droplets. When the lantern light catches the mist, it glows faintly, as though the entire field were breathing out a quiet luminescence. The sky above spreads wide and open. Stars scatter across it in calm constellations, their light subtle but clear. The moon hangs slightly off-center, casting elongated reflections on the water that stretch almost to the foot of the bridge. The clouds move at a tranquil pace, drifting in long, soft formations. Even their shadows fall slowly across the paddies, shifting with the unhurried passage of the night. As the farmer continues walking, his lantern sways gently with each step. The light moves across the path, bathing stones, reeds, and small tufts of grass in warm, shifting hues. The frogs pause their calls as he passes, then resume softly once he has moved on. The air around him feels thick with peace, as though the land itself is settling into a deep, restorative rest. Eventually, he stops once more to observe the landscape. His silhouette becomes part of the night, a quiet figure standing amidst vast stillness. The rice fields stretch far into the distance, serene and glowing, a patchwork of water and reflection that seems to hold the entire sky within it. Nothing stirs too suddenly. Nothing breaks the softness. The night over the rice fields remains calm, steady, and endlessly gentle, a slow-moving tapestry of light, water, and quiet breath. The rice fields stretch across the landscape like an immense, quiet sea, flat, open, and shimmering under the deep glow of the moon. At this hour, the fields feel almost suspended in time, their wide surfaces reflecting the sky with a clarity that makes the boundary between land and heavens seem faint, almost dreamlike. The moon hovers high, bathing the paddies in a soft, bluish sheen that settles gently over everything. The water catches the light in thin, wavering lines that shift with every subtle movement of wind or creature beneath the surface. The night breeze drifts slowly over the fields, cool and even, carrying with it scents that feel old and familiar. Damp earth, young rice shoots, faint traces of river water, hints of reed and wild grass. The breeze touches the water lightly, forming small, silky ripples that glide outward in slow, patient arcs. Every ripple reflects a slightly different angle of moonlight, creating a tapestry of soft, luminous patterns that drift across the paddies like wandering threads of silk. The rice shoots rise from the water in delicate green rows, thin, straight, and tender. Under the moonlight, they appear almost translucent near their tips, swaying gently with the motion of the air. They move as one in long, measured waves that pass across entire sections of the field. These waves create a faint rustling sound, a whisper like brushing of leaf against leaf, which repeats with quiet regularity. The sound is rhythmic and soothing, as though the fields themselves are breathing slowly. The dirt paths that divide the paddies are narrow and firm underfoot, shaped by centuries of routine movement. Their surfaces are cool now, but still hold the subtle memory of sunlight in deeper layers of the earth. The edges of the paths are softened by tufts of grass and reed clusters, where small insects gather, their bodies dimly illuminated by the ambient glow of the moon. Tiny droplets of dew cling to these grasses, turning each blade into a thin thread of glass. When the breeze shifts, the droplets tremble, catching the moonlight in quick glints before settling again. Frogs form a calm chorus throughout the fields. Their voices shift depending on their distance. Some slow, low croaks close by, others soft, echo like murmurs floating from farther away. The calls overlap in a peaceful harmony, rising and falling with an unhurried cadence. Their sounds blend so seamlessly with the landscape that it feels as though the night itself is speaking in a gentle, ancient language. A narrow wooden footbridge crosses one of the main irrigation channels that feed the fields. The bridge, worn smooth by countless footsteps, gleams faintly where the moonlight touches its grain. Its planks are slightly uneven, each one shaped by age and weather. When the wind moves, the bridge creaks softly, producing a long, low tone that fades almost as soon as it is heard. Beneath it, the water flows steadily, carrying light across its rippling surface. The sound of the water is constant and soothing, never rushing, never forceful, but moving at a deliberate, natural pace shaped by the contours of the land. The channel's water reflects the moon in slender, stretched shapes that sway gently with the current. Occasionally, a small fish swims near the surface, causing the reflection to bend and shimmer before settling back into stillness. Further along the channel, a cluster of reeds sways lightly, their thin stems casting long, narrow shadows that drift across the water before dissolving into the darker sections of the field. In the distance, a faint mist begins to gather, forming not all at once, but gradually, like breath spreading across a cold window. It rises from the paddies in soft layers, curling around the rice shoots. The mist moves slowly across the fields, settling just above the surface of the water. Its presence blurs the lines of the paddies, blending them into one another until the entire landscape looks like a single, floating sheet of white and silver. When the wind shifts, the mist rolls back slightly, revealing the outlines of the fields before drifting forward again with ease. A lone farmer walks along the quiet path, his lantern swinging gently from his hand. The lantern's soft amber glow spreads across the ground in an oval of warmth. Dust motes drift lazily in its light, moving like tiny, weightless flecks suspended in honey. Each step the farmer takes creates a subtle crunch beneath his sandals, softened further by the dew. His robe sways gently with his movements, brushing against his legs in slow, rhythmic motions. As he reaches the footbridge, he pauses, resting one hand on the railing. The wood feels cool and slightly moist beneath his touch. Looking out over the paddies, he sees the surface of the water gleaming in long, shimmering lines, marked intermittently by gentle ripples. The breeze carries faint scents upward, each one subtle: the fresh green of the rice shoots, the earthy perfume of the wet soil, the clean, mineral scent of river-fed water. These scents mingle into a calming whole, familiar and grounding. Fireflies appear around him in small clusters, blinking with soft, golden light. They drift among the paddies in slow, wandering paths. Their movements are gentle, almost hesitant. Some hover close to the water, their reflections flickering upon the surface like tiny floating lanterns. Others rise higher, weaving between reeds and grasses in patterns that seem to follow no logic, yet feel perfectly suited to the stillness of the night. The fireflies' glow brightens and fades in slow pulses, as if their tiny bodies beat with the same rhythm that moves across the fields. Near the shrine, beneath the distant trees, the mist thickens slightly. The wooden structure stands small and quiet beneath the spreading branches. The offering bowl before it is still and untouched, holding dried grains of rice that mellow into pale gold under the moonlight. The shrine seems almost to float in the mist, its features softened until it becomes a silhouette of calm reverence. Beside the paddies, a heron stands in shallow water, its long legs nearly invisible beneath the reflection of the moon. It remains utterly still for long moments at a time, its slender neck held in a graceful S-curve. The feathers along its body catch the light in faint, silvery tones. If it moves at all, it does so with extreme gentleness, lifting a foot, gliding it forward, setting it down again with barely a ripple. The heron's presence brings a quiet dignity to the night, an elegance that reinforces the peacefulness of the landscape. As the farmer continues his slow walk along the path, the mist swirls slightly around his legs. The lantern light softens in its presence, diffusing into the air like color fading into water. The frogs quiet for a brief moment as he passes, then resume their calm chorus once he moves on. The sound blends with the rustling of rice and the whisper of the wind, wrapping the fields in a layered symphony of gentle noise. He eventually stops again to admire the vastness stretching before him. The fields appear endless, each paddy a mirror reflecting the quiet unfolding above. Stars shimmer in the water in faint clusters. The moon stretches long across the paddies, broken only by the occasional reed or frog movement. Nothing hurries, nothing pushes. The night extends in long, slow breaths. Over the rice fields, calm reigns like a soft mantle, steady, cool, endlessly patient. It is a landscape fully surrendered to peace, inviting anyone who walks its paths to sink into its rhythm, to feel the quiet settle deeply into their body like warm water. Inside the lantern makeress workshop at the far edge of the village, where the last houses meet the beginnings of the open fields, a small lantern maker's workshop glows quietly in the blue hush of night. Its wooden walls are old but well cared for, polished smooth by years of hands sliding across them, of tools leaning against them, of seasons brushing past. From outside, the workshop appears modest, a simple structure with a thatched roof and a narrow veranda, but the soft, golden light seeping through its rice paper windows gives it a gentle warmth that stands out against the vast dark around it. The door is partially open, letting the cool night air drift inside. From the doorway, one can hear the faint, steady sounds of careful craftsmanship, soft taps of wood, the whisper of paper being smoothed, the slow exhale of someone focused on delicate tasks. These sounds are quiet, blending naturally with the ambient chorus of insects outside. The edges of the doorway glow faintly where lantern light from within spills outward, creating a thin, warm outline against the night. Inside, the workshop is a sanctuary of calm. The air smells lightly of bamboo strips recently shaved, of fresh paper, and of the faint remnants of glue made earlier that afternoon. Lantern frames of various sizes rest against the walls. Their thin bamboo ribs form elegant shapes: circles, ovals, tall columns, wide globes. Some are bare, waiting for their coats of paper. Others have already been wrapped in thin, translucent sheets that glow softly where the interior light touches them. All are arranged neatly, as though each lantern is simply pausing before coming fully to life. The lantern maker sits on a woven mat near a low table, his posture relaxed, his hands moving in slow, deliberate motions. His robe is loosely tied, the sleeves gathered above the forearms to keep them clear of his work. His fingers are worn and steady, shaped by years of crafting soft, light out of simple material. His touch is gentle, patient, never hurried. Tonight, he is assembling a round lantern, the bamboo ribs already arched into place. Each rib curves smoothly, held at the top by a small wooden ring, and the lantern maker runs his fingers along the bamboo to ensure each piece sits evenly. Beside him is a shallow bowl filled with paste made from rice starch, its surface smooth and slightly shiny in the lamplight. The brush he uses rests at the bowl's edge, its bristles soaked and ready. Sheets of freshly cut washi paper lie stacked nearby. They are pale and delicate, each sheet thin enough to let light pass through effortlessly. When he picks up one of these sheets, the paper bends gently between his fingers, its surface soft like woven silk. He lifts the brush, letting excess paste drip back into the bowl in slow, glistening threads. Then he spreads a thin layer onto the bamboo ribs, moving in long, sweeping strokes. The brush whispers as it travels, its bristles making a faint, soft sound every time they glide across the curved frame. He presses the first sheet of paper carefully against the bamboo, smoothing it with his open palm. The paper clings with a satisfying, gentle hold. He pauses to ensure no wrinkles form, pressing them out tenderly with the pads of his fingers. The lantern slowly begins to take shape, its pale surface glowing faintly as light from a nearby candelabra reflects through it. The lantern maker's breath is slow and even. When he leans forward, his robe rustles quietly, adding to the workshop's soft symphony of small sounds. His tools rest neatly around him: thin blades, wooden clamps, brushes with worn handles, scraping knives whose metal edges gleam faintly in the light. Everything has its place. Nothing cluttered, nothing rushed. A small kettle warms over a tiny charcoal brazier in the corner, releasing thin wisps of steam. The scent of roasted barley tea floats through the room, gentle and warm. From time to time, the lantern maker pauses to pour a sip into a clay cup, savoring the warmth as it spreads slowly through his chest before returning to his craft. Even the act of drinking seems unhurried, fitting naturally into the evening's rhythm. Against the far wall, finished lanterns hang from wooden pegs. Their shapes glow softly, each one carrying its own character. A tall, cylindrical lantern with painted plum blossoms offers a gentle floral motif. A small round lantern decorated with simple brush strokes of midnight blue depicts the distant mountains. Another lantern shows delicate fireflies dotting a field of reeds, each brushstroke thin and tender. The lantern maker glances at them occasionally, as though checking on old friends resting quietly nearby. A young apprentice sits in the corner, cross-legged, practicing the delicate art of shaving bamboo strips. His small knife scrapes lightly against the bamboo, producing thin curls that fall in gentle spirals onto the mat. He works slowly, his motions careful. Each strip must be shaved to just the right thickness, flexible but strong. The lantern maker sometimes lifts his head to watch him for a moment, offering no words, only a small, approving nod when the apprentice manages a particularly even cut. Outside, the night deepens further. The insects' hum becomes fuller, blending with the occasional soft splash from a small canal running behind the workshop. A moth flutters near the open door, circling lazily before drifting away again. The air carries a coolness that enters the workshop in long, quiet breaths, mingling with the faint warmth of the charcoal brazier. As the lantern takes shape, the lantern maker wraps it in its final layer of paper, smoothing it in slow, deliberate strokes until the entire frame is covered. Then he lifts the lantern gently, turning it in his hands. The paper glows faintly under the room's warm light, showing the subtle join lines where each sheet overlaps. He examines it closely, not with stern judgment, but with the calm pride of someone who values quiet craftsmanship. He moves to attach the wooden base, fitting it carefully, twisting the small pegs into place. His motions remain fluid, almost meditative. When he is finished, he sets the lantern beside the brazier. Here, the lantern glimmers softly, its surface warming gently from the nearby heat. The shadows it casts stretch long and soft across the floor, shaped by the flickering dance of flame. The apprentice watches the completed lantern with quiet admiration. The lantern maker gestures him closer, offering a soft, encouraging smile. Together, they observe the lantern's glow, the gentle promise of illumination it will one day carry through the village's darkened paths. Outside, the breeze stirs again, rustling the nearby reeds. The night remains patient, holding its steady hush. Inside the workshop, the lanterns shine like gentle stars brought down to earth, warm, quiet, and perfectly suited to the slowness of the hour. Nothing needs to be hurried. Nothing asks to be changed. The lanterns wait, glowing softly, as the night drifts peacefully onward. The lantern maker's workshop settles even deeper into the softness of night, holding a warm pocket of gentle golden glow within its wooden walls. The contrast between the quiet, dark landscape outside and the soft illumination inside makes the workshop feel like a quiet beacon of patience, a small, glowing heart surrounded by the cool calm of the village outskirts. The air is still but never stagnant, flowing lightly through the partially open door and mixing the chill of night with the warmth rising from the charcoal brazier. The workshop's interior is filled with the subtle scent of natural materials: freshly shaved bamboo, clean washi paper, pine wood, faint traces of glue, and the gentle aroma of barley tea. These fragrances mingle into a warm and familiar blend that feels almost like a kind of silence in itself, a presence that fills the space softly without any need for movement or sound. The lantern maker works near the center of the room, seated on a thick woven mat whose fibers have grown soft from years of use. His posture is calm, shoulders relaxed, back straight but never stiff. His hands, though worn, move with remarkable delicacy. The lantern before him rests upon a low table, its bamboo frame already curved into a near-perfect sphere. The ribs are thin and tender, spaced evenly, rising like slender arcs before meeting the small wooden ring at the top. He brushes his fingertips lightly along the bamboo, feeling for any rough edges or uneven grain. The bamboo is cool at first touch, then grows subtly warm under the pad of his thumb. The texture is smooth but not slippery, each rib carrying faint lines where the knife passed earlier in the day. He turns the frame slowly, and the movement creates shifting halos of light as the lantern reflects the gentle shimmer of the workshop's lamps. Beside him, the shallow bowl of rice paste sits undisturbed. The surface of the paste gleams, catching highlights from the flickering lamp flame. When he dips his brush into the mixture, it moves with a soft, fluid weight. The brush lifts smoothly, thin threads of paste stretching between bristles and bowl before dissolving back into the mixture. He begins to apply the paste to the bamboo ribs again, but even slower now. Each stroke is deliberate, following the natural curve of the frame. The brush whispers across the surface with a faint sound like the brushing of silk, soft, even almost melodic in its repetition. He pauses occasionally to angle the frame differently, letting the light reveal any point where a rib might need an extra touch of adhesive. The sheets of washi paper waiting at his side are soft and thin, stacked carefully so they do not bend or crease under their own weight. When he lifts one, the edges flutter slightly in the breeze from the open door. The paper is cool and smooth, almost velvety, its fibers faintly visible when held up to the lantern light. He places one sheet over the ribs, spreading it gently with his hands. The paper conforms slowly to the frame, its surface catching the soft light and glowing in muted golds and creams. He smooths each section with long, gentle strokes of his palm. His hands move in a steady rhythm, pressing out any small pockets of air, adjusting the paper to sit perfectly along the curves. The sound of paper being pressed is so faint that it is almost indistinguishable from silence, just a soft, barely audible touch. When he finishes one section, he takes another sheet and continues, layering them until the lantern begins to reveal its final form. The workshop seems to breathe with him. Each time he inhales, the small flame in the brazier flickers ever so slightly. Each exhale seems to deepen the stillness around him. The lantern hangs between his hands like a fragile globe, but it is sturdier than it looks, the bamboo ribs bound firmly beneath the new layers of paper. In the corner, the young apprentice remains focused on his task. He works with a small piece of bamboo clamped gently in place. His knife moves carefully, shaving thin curls that drift silently to the floor, forming tiny piles of pale, coiled shavings that resemble dried petals. His hand movements are slow and thoughtful, each stroke of the knife deliberate. Occasionally, he pauses to examine the thickness of the strip between his fingers, checking it against his teacher's earlier guidance. If it feels too thick, he shaves again, letting the blade make the barest sound against the bamboo, a delicate scrape, evenly paced. The lantern maker glances toward the apprentice from time to time, watching his progress with calm eyes. He does not rush him, nor does he correct without reason. The quiet of the workshop is part of the teaching. The silence allows the apprentice to feel his way into the craft, to sense the bamboo's texture, its weight, its flexibility. When the lantern maker does offer a small nod, the apprentice receives it with visible pride, though his motions remain composed. The lantern maker sets the nearly finished lantern aside for a moment and reaches for his cup of barley tea. The clay cup is warm, its rough surface pressing comfortingly against his palms. He takes a slow sip. The tea carries a soft roasted flavor, warm and slightly nutty, filling his mouth with gentle heat that spreads down into his chest. When he sets the cup back down, a faint curl of steam rises from it, swirling briefly before dissolving into the ambient air. Along the back wall, the finished lanterns glow softly, their surfaces almost ethereal in the dim light. The washi paper diffuses the glow into gentle halos, making the lanterns appear like suspended moons hovering in a quiet constellation. Some lanterns remain unlit, their delicate paintings of plum blossoms, mountain lines, and drifting fireflies barely visible in the shadows. Others shine with a faint golden warmth, their painted designs illuminated from within. The soundscape of the workshop remains rich in quiet detail. The brazier crackles softly, not with urgency, but with a subdued, slow warmth. The bamboo strips shift gently as the apprentice works, making occasional tiny clicks. A moth taps lightly against the paper window, its wings producing a faint brushing sound before it flutters away again. Outside, the hum of night insects continues with steady calm, and the soft trickle of the nearby canal adds a flowing undercurrent of sound that blends seamlessly into the atmosphere. As he finishes attaching the final layer of paper, the lantern maker lifts the lantern gently, turning it in his hands to examine the subtle overlap of its seams. The seams are faint, nearly invisible under the soft glow. The lantern's shape is perfect, round, balanced, harmonious. He brings it closer to the lamp, watching as the light filters through in warm, even tones. The shadows cast upon the floor shift gently as he turns it, stretching into long ovals that fade at their edges. He attaches the wooden base with slow, practiced motions. The small pegs that hold the frame in place slide neatly into their grooves. The wood is smooth and warm from being stored near the brazier earlier, making it easier to handle. Once the base is secured, he holds the lantern upright, letting it rest on the mat beside him. It glows softly, a warm orb of gentle light that seems to steady the entire room around it. The apprentice, finished with his bamboo shaving, sets his tools aside and moves closer. He sits beside the lantern maker without speaking, his eyes wide as he watches the freshly completed lantern settle into its glow. The lantern maker gives him a small, approving nod before reaching to adjust the small wick inside. With the slightest touch of flame from a nearby taper, the lantern softly brightens, the painted designs now visible in delicate outlines. Together they watch the lantern, letting its glow fill the quiet space. The room seems to breathe with them, growing warmer and softer as the lantern light spreads across the walls, the tools, the half-finished frames, and the gentle mats beneath their feet. Outside, the night continues its slow, patient drifting. The reeds sway, the water murmurs, the insects hum. Inside the workshop, time feels almost suspended, held gently between the soft glow of lanterns and the steady presence of quiet craftsmanship. Everything remains calm. Everything remains soft. The lanterns glow on as the night deepens peacefully around them. The soft glow of HOMES 18 night as the night deepens and settles fully across the village. The homes begin to glow like warm, gentle embers scattered among the quiet landscape. Each house, built of wood and paper, holds a small pocket of light inside. And from the outside, these hints of radiance appear like soft, golden clouds behind the rice paper screens. The village feels as though it is breathing, each home exhaling faint warmth into the cooling air, each window glowing with a slow, steady heartbeat of light. Along the narrow paths, the ground is cool, the packed earth softened by dew forming in thin layers that shimmer when lantern light drifts across them. The stones embedded in the walkways gleam faintly, reflecting the shapes of nearby homes in stretched silhouettes. The air carries the aroma of the evening's last activities, faint notes of simmered broth, traces of burned charcoal, the mild sweetness of steamed rice that still lingers. These scents drift through the quiet night, settling into the wooden beams, the tatami mats, and the small empty spaces between homes. The gently spaced houses create a rhythm of light and shadow. Some windows glow softly, others are dark, already surrendered to sleep. Along one of the paths, a home still shows the flickering of a lantern in its main room. The light washes across the veranda in thin, warm stripes, spreading outward before fading into the night air. A pair of wooden sandals rests beside the step, their surfaces catching the faint glow. Inside this home, a family sits quietly finishing their final tasks of the evening. A mother folds simple garments atop a low wooden chest. Her motions are slow, her fingers sliding along the cotton fabric with a gentle, practiced familiarity. Each fold settles into place like a slow exhale. The fire in the small hearth nearby burns low, its embers glowing a dull orange that occasionally brightens when a faint draft passes through. The smell of warm ash mingles with the scent of the garments, producing a calming mix of earth and cloth and quiet warmth. A father sits across from her, polishing the small wooden fittings of a household tool. His cloth moves in a calm, circular pattern. The wood beneath his fingers glows softly, its grain catching tiny threads of lantern light. Occasionally, he pauses to examine the piece from a different angle, not out of urgency, but from habit, ensuring everything is as it should be before the night ends. His breath is steady, his expression peaceful. Nearby, their child lies on a thin futon prepared beside the hearth. The child's eyes grow heavy, blinking at the gentle shapes cast upon the ceiling by the lantern's flickering glow. The shadows dance just a little, never sharply, never quickly, moving with the slow rhythm of flame. The child watches the shapes shift, a stretched branch, a curved pot, a slanted beam. The patterns drift across the ceiling, smoothing into one another in soft transitions, until the child's breathing lengthens and evens, folding into sleep as seamlessly as a leaf settling onto still water. Farther down the path, another home glows with a different rhythm. Here, an elderly couple sits quietly at a low table, drinking the last tea of the day. The steam rises in soft curls from their clay cups, dimly illuminated by a lantern placed between them. The warm scent of roasted tea leaves creates a mellow aroma that settles into the air around them. They speak very little, their silence shaped not by necessity, but by the comfort of companionship. Their hands rest near each other on the table, not touching but close enough to feel each other's presence. The husband occasionally reaches to adjust the small wick of the lantern, the flame responding by brightening and then shrinking back into a steady glow. The wife takes a slow sip, her eyes half-lidded, savoring the warmth as it spreads through her. Outside their window, the sound of crickets hums softly, blending with the faint rustling of bamboo leaves just beyond the veranda. Behind this house, a garden rests beneath the moonlight. Stones line the narrow paths, their surfaces cool and smooth. A small shrub trimmed earlier in the afternoon holds tiny droplets of dew along its leaves, each droplet catching the lantern light in miniature glimmers. A patch of moss at the base of a wooden post is thick and velvety, its deep green darkened by the night. The garden seems half awake, half asleep, its shapes softened by shadow, its edges fading gently into the stillness. Across the village, another home lights only a single candle. The faint glow reveals a woman seated on a cushion, writing a letter. Her brush moves slowly across the paper, forming characters that flow in calm, sweeping motions. The candle flame flickers against the paper, illuminating her writing hand and the soft shadows of her sleeve. Each stroke of the brush makes a delicate sound, just a faint rasp, barely audible over the background murmur of nocturnal insects. When she pauses to re-ink the brush, she lifts her head slightly and listens to the sounds outside. The breeze dusts the edges of the paper door, making it rustle gently. A dog barks once in the distance, the sound softened by the intervening houses. She continues writing with a slow, unhurried grace, letting the calm of the night settle into each character she shapes. In another home, someone prepares bedding. Tatami mats shift very slightly as a futon is unrolled, producing a soft, sliding sigh. The bedding fabric falls in long, gentle folds, brushed into place with practiced care. The lantern nearby flickers lightly as the air moves, casting mellow bands of brightness along the futon. A pillow, filled with buckwheat husks, rustles faintly when adjusted. The atmosphere fills with the soft sounds of settling, cloth being smoothed, a door gently sliding into its track, a quiet breath released in contentment. Beyond these homes, a small group of villagers gathers briefly near a shared well, though not to draw water, only to enjoy the cool night air together. Their lanterns cast overlapping circles of light across the ground, forming soft pools of illumination. They speak in low tones, their voices calm and steady. The bucket beside the well sways lightly in the breeze, creating a slow, rhythmic tapping against the wooden frame. The sound is peaceful, blending into the steady hum of the night. When they part ways, the lanterns drift slowly along the paths, carried carefully back home. Their glows stretch and compress against the ground with each gentle step, creating long, shifting silhouettes that drift softly through the village before returning behind sliding doors. Above all these homes, the sky expands in a quiet canopy of stars. The moon casts a muted silver sheen across rooftops and pathways alike. From this vantage, the entire village looks like a cluster of still, glowing islands floating on a calm, dark sea. The air remains cool and soothing. The lights remain steady and patient. The night wraps gently around every home, as though cradling the village in a slow, serene embrace. The village rests beneath the full weight of night, wrapped in a deep, velvety quiet that settles over rooftops, winding paths, and distant tree lines. Everywhere, the world has slowed into a gentle hush, and within this hush, the homes glow like warm breaths suspended in the darkness, soft, diffuse, and deeply calming. From above, the houses appear as faint amber shapes scattered between fields and groves. Their rice paper walls soften every lantern within, turning bright flames into muted halos. These halos spill onto verandas and beams, pooling gently at the edges of sliding doors before fading into the cool expanse of the night. No light is harsh. None is hurried. Each glow feels deliberate, as though the village has chosen just the right amount of illumination to keep the darkness company. Along the main path, the earth is cool beneath the descending dew. Footprints left earlier in the day have softened, their outlines blurred by the moisture settling onto the ground. Thin beads of water cling to patches of grass, bending each blade ever so slightly under their delicate weight. The lantern light from nearby windows catches these droplets, turning them into a scattering of tiny, shimmering sparks that glint and disappear as the breeze moves them. The homes vary in their quiet rituals. In one house near the well, the evening meal has long since ended, but the scent lingers. A soft mix of boiled barley, simmered greens, and miso whose savory warmth clings to the hearthstones. The last pot has been washed and set upside down to dry. Its rim gleams faintly under a lantern hung on a wooden peg. A few wooden spoons rest beside it, their polished surfaces still damp yet warm from earlier use. Inside, a mother and her daughter sit facing each other across a low table. The daughter practices her embroidery under the lantern's glow, guiding her needle through a piece of cloth with slow, deliberate motions. Each pull of the thread produces the faintest whisper, a soft, sliding sound barely noticeable unless the room is completely still, which it is. The mother occasionally glances up from her own quiet work of folding garments, her movements gentle, her breath matching the slow rhythm of the night. Next door, a father lifts his young son onto his lap, settling onto a thick cushion near the hearth. The fire has burned low, leaving only glowing coals, soft and pulsing like tiny hearts beneath a bed of ash. The warmth that radiates from them is tender and even bathing the small family in gentle comfort. The father hums a slow tune, not meant to be heard beyond the walls, just a soft murmur to ease the child into sleep. The boy rests his cheek against his father's chest, blinking slowly as his eyes follow the shifting shadows cast by the lantern. The gentle movement of the shadows, stretching, shrinking, drifting, helps him sink deeper into drowsiness. When he finally closes his eyes, his father continues humming a little longer, letting the weight of the moment drape over them both like a warm blanket. Farther along the narrow lane, an elderly couple prepares for rest. Their home is lit by just one lantern, its flame steady and patient. The couple moves with a practiced slowness, accustomed to the quiet rituals of nightfall. The husband checks the shutters one last time, sliding them carefully until they click into place. The wood glides smoothly, having been oiled earlier that month. The wife spreads out their bedding on the tatami mats, the soft rustling of the futon filling the space with a calming sound. She smooths each corner with her palm, ensuring no crease remains. The straw scent of the tatami rises as she works, a grounding, earthy fragrance that has lived in the house longer than they have. When the couple finally settles onto their bedding, they lie side by side, listening to the steady hum of the night outside. A bamboo grove grows close to their home, and the sound of its leaves brushing together becomes a constant lullaby. The husband murmurs a few quiet thoughts about the day. The wife responds with soft agreement. Their conversation drifts, thinning out into silence as their eyes grow heavy. Their lantern continues glowing from the corner of the room, a small guardian of the deepening night. A short walk away, another window shows the delicate silhouette of a woman writing a letter. She sits upright, the brush moving with an elegant slowness across the paper. The candle next to her flickers intermittently as small drafts slide through the cracks in the wooden panels. Each flicker makes the shadows on her desk stretch and shrink in long, drowsy motions. When she pauses to consider her next line, she lifts her gaze thoughtfully, letting her eyes drift toward the soft darkness beyond the half-open screen. The sounds that reach her are faint but comforting, the distant croak of frogs, the rustling of bamboo, the occasional soft tap of something settling in another home. She resumes writing with renewed calm, each character forming like a slow breath on the paper. Behind another sliding door, a man rolls up a tatami mat to place a sleeping mat beneath it. The sound of the tatami moving creates a low, hushed sigh, as though the floor itself is settling into a more comfortable position. A woven blanket unfolds with a crisp softness and settles gently onto the futon. A pillow filled with buckwheat husk shifts when pressed, creating a quiet, grainy sound that quickly fades. The man adjusts the pillow once, then again, finding the most natural angle for rest. His lantern flickers in soft intervals, sending gentle, sleepy shadows drifting across the ceiling. Just beyond these homes, two villagers linger near the shared well. Their lanterns cast circular pools of amber across the ground, overlapping at their feet. They speak in low tones, their voices warm and steady, carrying hints of the day's final reflections. One of them absently touches the rim of the well bucket, which sways lightly on its rope and taps in slow intervals against the wooden frame. The soft tapping echoes faintly into the night, a patient, rhythmic sound that blends with the insects' gentle chorus. When the villagers part ways, the lantern light moves along the paths, shifting gracefully with every step. Their lights rise and fall, forming long shadows that stretch momentarily behind them before dissolving back into the quiet earth. The doors slide shut behind them in soft, wooden murmurs, completing the nightly retreat of each individual household. As more homes dim their lanterns, the village transitions into deeper tranquility. Only a few windows remain bright, glowing like quiet watchfires amid the fading constellation of warm lights. The rooftops glisten faintly with dew, forming tiny beads that gather and slide slowly along the tiles. The smell of damp earth becomes more pronounced as the breeze moves through, brushing gently against shutters and carrying faint hints of pine from the nearby hills. The night sky expands above all of this, vast and steady. Stars shimmer in scattered clusters. The moon casts its silver light across rooftops, paths, and gardens, bathing everything in a soft, ethereal glow. In this stillness, the village feels like a single, breathing being, calm, grounded, enveloped in peace. Everything glows softly. Everything settles deeply. Everything rests in the gentle cradle of night. A still forest under the moon beyond the village, past the last traces of lantern light and the quiet line of homes, the land stretches into a deep and ancient forest. At night, this forest becomes a realm of hushed breath and quiet presence, a place where every tree, every leaf, every stone sinks into the slow, patient rhythm of the dark. The canopy above gathers the moonlight and scatters it softly, letting it fall in pale, silken streams through branches woven thick over centuries. The forest floor lies cool beneath the night air. Fallen leaves form a muted carpet of browns and soft greens, compressing gently underfoot with the quietest of sounds, a low, cushioned rustle that fades almost instantly. Moisture gathers along the edges of these leaves, tiny droplets of dew resting delicately upon their surfaces. When the faint breeze moves through, the droplets tremble, catching the moonlight in tiny, fleeting sparks before settling again into perfect stillness. The trees rise tall and straight, their trunks dark against the pale shimmer of the sky. Birch, cedar, pine, and maple stand together, forming slow-moving tides of leaves and branches that seem to sway as one living organism. Their roots weave into the earth below, anchoring them firmly through centuries of growing and weathering. The bark of each tree holds its own quiet texture, smooth and pale on the birch, deep and ridged along the pines, flaking like old parchment on the maples. The scent of wood mingles with the cool night air, forming an earthy, grounding aroma that settles deep into the senses. A narrow path winds through the forest, barely visible, except where moonlight touches the stones that mark its way. These stones are worn smooth by time, their surfaces made glossy by countless steps from generations long gone. Moss grows thick around their edges, creating soft borders that glow faintly in the silvery light. The path moves gently between the trees, curving here and there as though respecting the natural shapes of roots and trunks. Listening closely, one can hear the forest speaking in its quiet language. Leaves rustle softly as the breeze weaves through them, not in sweeping gusts, but in light, lingering sighs. Insects hum at steady intervals, forming a delicate and calming chorus. Near a fallen log, a beetle shifts through dried leaves, its tiny movements adding small, almost imperceptible scratches to the night's layered symphony. No sound dominates, each one fits seamlessly into the forest's balanced hush. Deeper in the woods, a small stream winds its way between stones. Its flow is gentle, barely enough to break the surface into ripples. The water glides over pebbles in a soft, melodic trickle, sounding like a whispered lullaby the earth has repeated for centuries. Where the moonlight touches the creek, the surface gleams in elongated streaks of silver, bending and softening each time the faint current stirs. Ferns along the stream's edge sway gently, their long fronds brushing against one another with slow, leaf-soft murmurs. A tall cedar stands near the center of the forest clearing, its trunk wide and deeply rooted. The branches stretch outward like protective arms, shading the ground beneath. The needles form thick mats overhead, dark against the light sky. When a gust moves through the branches, it creates a sound unlike any other in the forest, a low, wavering sigh that settles into the air like a somber, comforting chant. Beneath the cedar, the ground is softer, covered in a smooth layer of old fallen needles. They cushion every movement, reducing footsteps to near silence. Occasionally, a small creature makes its presence known. A deer steps cautiously through the underbrush, its hooves pressing lightly into the forest floor. Each step breaks a leaf, rustles a branch, creates a soft, measured sound that lingers briefly before melting back into the stillness. The deer's breath mists faintly as it lifts its head to listen. Its ears twitch at the distant call of an owl, the sound low and hollow as it drifts through the trees. The owl itself sits upon a high branch, still as stone. Its silhouette merges with the dark outline of the trunk. Only its eyes catch the moonlight, reflecting pale glints like faint lanterns watching the forest. When it finally releases another call, its voice spreads outward in soft, echoing waves, reaching even the edges of the village before dissolving into air. The sound is not haunting. Rather, it feels ancient, grounding, familiar, as though the night itself chose to speak through it. Farther along the path, a small shrine appears between two large stones. It is simple, perhaps long forgotten by most who pass through, but restored quietly by those who care for this land. The wooden structure is worn, its surface softened by years of wind and rain. Moss grows along its edges, giving it a gentle, aged green hue. Inside, a small carved figure rests upon a tiny platform, a guardian spirit of the forest, shaped long ago with tender hands. Offerings of pine cones, smooth stones, and dried rice rest before it, placed by villagers who understand the quiet exchanges between people and the land they inhabit. A faint scent of incense lingers near the shrine, carried from some earlier visit. Though long faded, the aroma clings to the air in thin traces, sweet, woody, delicate. When the breeze moves, it carries the scent only a little, as if reluctant to disturb what remains. The path widens briefly near the heart of the forest, opening into a moonlit glade. Here, the trees part just enough to reveal a broad patch of sky overhead. The moon shines unobstructed, casting a pale pool of silver across the ground. The grass here is short and soft, bending gently under the weight of dew. Fireflies drift in slow arcs through the air, their small lights blinking in irregular but peaceful patterns. Some settle on blades of grass, glowing for a moment before lifting off again into the cool night. The glade holds a quiet that feels different from the quiet of the deeper woods. It is open, airy, as though the forest itself is taking a long, deep breath of rest. The air here is slightly warmer, touched by moonlight and free from the canopy's thick shade. If one stands in the middle of the clearing, they can feel the gentle warmth on their face, a soft counterbalance to the coolness that wraps the forest's edges. The trees surrounding the glade stand like quiet sentinels. Their shadows stretch long and delicate across the moonlit ground. A gentle breeze flows through the branches, making leaves shimmer in soft waves of motion. Each movement seems slow, intentional, dreamlike. Somewhere nearby, a bamboo grove sways softly. The tall, hollow stems knock gently against one another, creating a rhythmic, percussive sound, light, wooden, almost melodic. The sound of bamboo in the breeze carries far through the night, familiar and soothing, its pacing slow enough to mirror a resting heartbeat. As the hours deepen, the forest settles even further into tranquility. The insects keep their steady hum. The stream continues its soft murmur. The deer disappear back into the shadows. The owl shifts once on its branch, ruffling its feathers before sinking into stillness again. Nothing hurries. Nothing disturbs the balance. Under the moon's steady glow, the forest becomes a cradle of silence, a vast, living world breathing calmly in the dark, embracing every tree, every stone, every drifting sound in its slow, peaceful rhythm. The quiet shores of the village river beyond the last rice paddies, and past the soft edge of the forest, a gentle river winds along the outskirts of the village. At night, its presence feels calming and ancient, a long ribbon of water that has flowed in the same patient rhythm for generations. Under the moonlight, the river becomes a wide path of silver, its surface shimmering in soft, wavering patterns that drift slowly downstream. The movement is unhurried, carrying only the smallest hints of ripples where stones beneath the surface guide the current's path. The air around the river is cooler, touched by the moisture rising from the water. A faint mist lingers near the banks, floating in thin, soft sheets that move only when the breeze pushes them gently from one side of the river to the other. This mist is delicate, forming pale, ghost-like layers that drift low across the reeds and stones. When the moonlight touches it, the mist glows faintly, giving the river an almost dreamlike aura. Along the riverbank, smooth stones lie scattered, large, small, round, and oval, shaped over time by water's steady touch. Many of these stones hold thin glimmers of moisture from the night air, turning them into subtle mirrors that catch fragments of moonlight. When the breeze shifts the mist aside, the light dances across the stones in long, soft sweeps, like reflections of lanterns being slowly carried downstream. The tall reeds that grow along the banks move in a quiet, rhythmic motion. Their slender stems bend gently, brushed by the passing breeze as though bowing toward the water in slow greeting. The sound they produce is a faint rustle, light, breathy, and steady. It mixes with the soft murmur of the river, creating a layered soundscape that feels ancient and soothing. Crickets hum from somewhere deep within the reeds, their voices rising and falling in peaceful repetition. A wooden dock extends a few feet into the river, its surface smooth from years of use. The planks are held together by thick ropes that creak faintly when the wind touches them. Tonight, the dock sways almost imperceptibly with the gentle push of the current. The sound is soft, just a subtle wooden whisper, and blends seamlessly with the river's slow murmur. A small fishing boat is tied to one of the posts, rocking just enough to ripple its own reflection in the water. The boat's lantern hangs from its bow, but it is unlit. Its glass catches the moonlight instead, forming a quiet, diffused glow around the edges. A pair of wooden oars rests inside the vessel, their surfaces smooth and worn from countless journeys. They lie still now, illuminated faintly by the pale light that filters through the mist. Farther upriver, the current moves around a series of small boulders, creating gentle eddies that swirl in slow, rounded shapes. These eddies rotate calmly, their movements steady and mesmerizing. The water glides over the tops of the rocks with a soft sheen, forming delicate cascades that spill into thin silver trails. The sound of these small falls is soothing, neither loud nor forceful, but a tender, continuous whisper that echoes faintly along the shore. A heron stands tall near the river's edge, half hidden among the reeds. Its long neck curves in a graceful arc as it watches the water with calm, unwavering attention. The bird's feathers look soft under the moon, each one holding a faint glow along its edge. The heron's slow breaths puff lightly into the cool air, mixing with the rising mist. When it shifts its weight, the reeds part slightly around its slender legs, creating soft rustles before returning to stillness. Eventually, it lowers its head into a more restful posture, content to remain in place without any need for movement. On the opposite bank, a line of stones leads toward a small shrine dedicated to the river spirit. The shrine is simple, just a wooden structure with a curved roof, set atop a low stone platform. A tiny offering bowl rests at its base, holding dried rice grains and two small sprigs of wildflowers. A thin rope hung with paper charms stretches across the front. Tonight, the charms sway ever so slightly, their motion gentle and rhythmic. The handwritten prayers upon them flutter in and out of view like soft whispers carried on the breeze. Further along the river, fireflies drift above the water in slow, meandering paths. Their lights flicker like delicate embers floating in the air. Some hover near the surface, casting tiny reflections that shimmer and break across the moving current. Others drift higher, weaving faint trails of light through the mist. The river absorbs their glow as though collecting stars that have come down from the sky to rest for a while upon its calm surface. Across the water, the far shore blends into the dark silhouette of trees. Their branches lean toward the river, forming a natural canopy that frames the water with gentle shapes. The leaves, touched by the breeze, create soft ripples of sound that travel down the shoreline like a hushed murmur. Occasionally, a leaf detaches and falls with patient grace, landing upon the water with the faintest kiss. It drifts slowly downstream, turning lazily, caught in the current's steady embrace. The night insects sing here as well, though more softly than in the village fields. Their voices form a subtle hum that seems to rise from the ground itself, blending seamlessly with the low murmuring of the current. A distant frog croaks from somewhere hidden among the stones, its call deep and slow. Another answers from farther down the river, and then the night resumes its steady hush. A villager appears on the riverbank, carrying a small lantern by its handle. The glow from the lantern illuminates the path in golden tones, forming long, soft shadows that sway with each step. The villager pauses at the edge of the dock, lowering the lantern slightly. Its light spills across the water, mingling gently with the moon's glow. The reflection stretches downward, forming long ribbons of gold and silver that weave together in quiet harmony. The villager sits at the edge of the dock, legs dangling toward the water. Their sandals rest beside them, and the boards beneath them creak softly. They breathe slowly, matching the pace of the river. The night wraps around them, cool, serene, and filled with the quiet sounds of water and wind. For a long moment, they simply sit and listen. As the hours deepen, the mist thickens, forming a delicate veil above the river. The lantern light glows softly within this thin haze, spreading outward in blurred halos. Moonlight filters through the mist in pale, dreamy beams. The two lights, one warm, one cool, meet and mingle gently above the water, creating a tranquil, luminous atmosphere that settles around the dock like a soft blanket. Nothing disturbs the quiet. The river flows on, calm and steady. Its slow, endless murmur carries softly into the night, weaving itself into the fabric of peaceful dreams that drift over the sleeping village. The river lies beneath the moon like a long, unbroken ribbon of liquid silver, stretching quietly across the village outskirts. In the deep night, its presence feels even more serene, as though it has slipped into a slower rhythm than the rest of the world. The moonlight settles onto the water in soft, luminous layers, forming gentle highlights that shimmer and bend with every subtle movement of the current. The surface is neither perfectly smooth nor fully rippled, just a calm, drifting texture that shifts like silk unfurled under a soft breeze. The air along the riverbank carries a cool moisture that settles on exposed skin with a faint, refreshing chill. It mixes with the subdued scents of wet stone, river reeds, damp soil, and distant pine. These fragrances blend seamlessly, creating a soothing, earthy calm that feels ancient and grounding. The mist that drifts above the water thickens and thins in delicate waves, sometimes gathering into soft folds that hover close to the surface, other times spreading wide and thin, as if stretching out to rest upon the banks. Smooth stones line the river's edge, varying in size from tiny pebbles to large, rounded boulders shaped by centuries of flowing water. Their surfaces glisten under the moonlight, each stone catching the glow differently, some holding a faint silver sheen, others reflecting it in muted patches. Dew gathers along the stones closest to the water, making their edges sparkle faintly. When the breeze stirs the mist, the shifting light patterns across the stones create slow, mesmerizing motions, like wavering lantern light. The tall reeds that grow in dense clusters along the bank sway with a gentle uniformity. Their long stems bend softly toward the water, brushing lightly against one another in a rhythmic, whispering rasp. Each movement seems small, measured, and calm. Among the reeds, clusters of tiny insects hover with delicate, vibrating wings, their movements barely perceptible except when the lantern light from the village catches them in soft, golden flickers. The wooden dock that extends a little into the river stands still and quiet, its dark planks absorbing the night's coolness. The wood has been worn smooth by decades of feet stepping across it, fishermen returning in the early morning, children dipping their toes into the water during warmer seasons, villagers pausing here to watch the river move in its endless, gentle procession. The dock creaks now and then, very softly, as it shifts against the slight tug of the current. Each creak is a low, mellow sound, blending into the night as naturally as the wind or the hum of crickets. The boat tied to the dock rocks subtly, its wooden hull touching the dock with faint, rhythmic knocks. The rope that holds it sways slightly, its fibers catching the moonlight in thin, golden threads. Inside the boat, the oars rest side by side, one leaning lightly against the other. Their surfaces are smooth from long use, shaped by hands that guided them repeatedly through early morning mist and quiet twilight waters. The boat's lantern, though unlit, reflects the moonlight along its curved glass, forming soft halos around its edges. Farther upriver, small cascades form where the current meets gentle rises in the riverbed. These cascades are not loud, but their low, steady murmur adds texture to the silence. Water slips over the stones in thin, translucent sheets, catching the moonlight in shimmering waves that brighten and fade slowly. Each small fall creates tiny eddies where the water whirls almost invisibly, turning and settling again into the river's forward flow. The sound is soothing, a muted, endless lullaby shaped by the land. Near these boulders, a lone heron stands poised in the shallows. Its slender body is perfectly still, the moon casting a soft glow along its feathers. The subtle patterns of its plumage appear faintly silver, each contour highlighted as though gently brushed by moonbeams. Occasionally, the heron flicks an eye toward the water, but the motion is minimal, quiet, patient, almost meditative. It lifts one leg slowly, shifts, and sets it back into the water with no more disturbance than a tiny ripple that widens and fades within moments. Across the river, the small shrine dedicated to the water spirit sits nestled beside two broad stones. The shrine's roof is curved, its wooden beams shaped by weather and time. Moss covers the lower half of its structure, giving it a soft, green mantle that seems to merge it into the landscape. The offering bowl in front glints gently under the moonlight, holding grains that look almost pearlescent in the faint glow. The rope above the shrine, strung with paper charms, sways lazily, each charm turning just slightly with the breeze. The faint rustle of paper creates a quiet, sacred sound, light, ephemeral, like whispered prayers. Beyond the shrine, fireflies begin their drifting patterns over the water. Their tiny bodies blink softly, at irregular intervals, making them resemble wandering embers floating through the air. Their reflections shimmer upon the river like miniature stars flickering on the surface. Some fireflies follow the current downstream, their glow rising and falling with the subtle movements of the mist. Others stay near the bank, weaving between reeds or circling the tops of the stones, illuminating the edges of moss in gentle pulses. The opposite shore is shadowed by dense trees, their branches arching toward the river. The leaves rustle softly when the breeze flows through, the sound deep and layered. Underneath the canopy, the shadows are thick and velvety, with only small fragments of moonlight breaking through in narrow beams. These scattered beams fall across patches of moss, exposed roots, and low-growing ferns, forming pale islands of soft illumination. The night insects along the river add their subtle voices to the nocturnal tapestry. Their drones and chirps form a soothing, repetitive pattern, layered and gentle. A single frog croaks from somewhere hidden in the reeds, a slow, rounded sound that lingers in the air before fading. Another responds from farther downstream, its voice softer and more distant. Their simple dialogue settles into the calm like a slow exchange of quiet greetings. A villager walks slowly toward the dock, carrying a lantern by its curved handle. The lantern's glow forms a warm sphere around them, illuminating the dewy path in soft, golden tones. Their footsteps are unhurried, each one accompanied by the faint crunch of gravel or the soft press of earth. The lantern light paints long, gentle shadows behind them that stretch and contract with their pace, drifting smoothly over stones and reeds. When the villager reaches the water's edge, they sit carefully on the dock, placing the lantern beside them. The light reflects on the river, forming wavering ribbons of gold that intermingle with the moon's silver trails. The breeze catches the lantern's flame occasionally, causing it to lean and flicker, but always returning to a steady glow. The villager breathes slowly, letting the peaceful scents and sounds of the river settle deeply into their senses. They watch the river move in its slow, continuous flow. They see fireflies drifting across the surface, their reflections shimmering gently. They listen to the murmur of distant falls, the rustle of reeds, the soft knock of the boat against the dock. Their shoulders relax, their breath lengthens, their posture softens. The night seems to cradle them, surrounding them with a serene, uncomplicated calm. As time drifts on, the mist grows thicker, curling around the dock in delicate wisps. The lantern light glows faintly within it, diffusing outward in warm halos that make the whole scene feel dreamlike, gentle, suspended. In this deep stillness, nothing urges, nothing rushes. The river flows at its own patient pace. The night continues its quiet drifting. The village sleeps behind the trees. Everything rests beneath the moon. Everything breathes with soft, measured ease. The river carries the night forward in its calming, endless murmuring. A peaceful night in the castle town far beyond the quiet river and the sleeping village, the land gently rises toward a modest castle town, small, serene, and resting under the soft glow of the moon. The castle itself is not grand by the standards of great lords, yet it holds a quiet dignity. Its wooden beams and layered roofs, each tier curved gracefully upward, rise above the town like a patient guardian watching over its people. At night, the entire town seems to breathe in unison with the castle, settling into a tranquil stillness that feels both protective and deeply restful. The outer walls of the town form sturdy, dark silhouettes against the sky. Lanterns hang from tall wooden posts near the main gate, their flames wrapped in protective paper covers that diffuse the light into soft, muted halos. These halos sway gently with each passing breeze, illuminating the gate's wooden surface in slow, gliding motions. The large doors remain closed for the night, secured with thick wooden beams that creak quietly as they settle into their resting position. Inside the walls, the castle town's streets spread out in calm, winding paths. The main road, lined with merchant stalls and woven awnings, is completely quiet at this hour. Stalls stand empty, their goods carefully tucked away and their cloth coverings tied down against the night breeze. The wooden stands cast long, thin shadows across the street, softened by the pale glow from the lanterns suspended above. The scent of daytime activity, fresh rice, dried fish, fabric dyes, incense, has faded, replaced by the clean coolness of night air drifting freely through the corridors of the town. Small houses sit close together along the narrower side roads. Their wooden walls are darkened by the night, yet soft light escapes from a few windows where families have not yet fully settled into sleep. These lights appear gentle, never harsh, just faint golden glows that pulse slowly behind paper screens. Occasionally, a silhouette moves across a window, someone preparing bedding, someone pouring a last cup of tea, someone adjusting a lantern wick. The shadows are soft, blurred by the paper walls, blending into the stillness of the night. A narrow canal runs through the center of the town, its waters moving with subtle, glass-like ripples. Stone bridges arch over the canal at regular intervals, their smooth surfaces shining faintly under the moonlight. At night, the canal acts as a quiet mirror of the town, capturing reflections of the lanterns and turning them into long, wavering streaks of gold and white. The sound of the moving water is soft and constant, a low, soothing murmur that glides between buildings and beneath the bridges. Along one bridge, a small guard outpost stands with its own lantern burning at the door. The flame glows steadily, casting gentle circles of warmth on the stone walkway. Inside, a lone guard sits on a low stool, polishing a simple spear. His posture is relaxed, his movements unhurried. He drags a cloth down the length of the shaft with a slow, methodical rhythm. The spear's metal tip glimmers faintly in the lantern light, catching soft reflections from the canal. The guard's armor rests neatly beside him, set aside for the night so that he can enjoy the comfort of lighter robes. He hums quietly to himself, the sound gentle and drifting, blending seamlessly with the quiet flow of water below. Further up the road, the castle looms with serene presence. Its walls are made of carefully stacked stone, smoothed and aged over generations. Lanterns mounted near the entrance cast faint light upward, illuminating the lower tiers of the wooden structure above. The castle's main tower rises in elegant silhouettes, tier upon tier of wooden roofs that catch the moonlight in thin arcs. The tile edges gleam faintly, forming delicate lines of silver that trace the contours of each tier. Inside the castle courtyard, the atmosphere is even quieter. The wide gravel paths glisten slightly with dew, each stone reflecting little points of light. A small garden lies at the center, carefully maintained, with smooth boulders arranged alongside trimmed shrubs and raked sand. The sand patterns swirl in broad, deliberate arcs, untouched since the evening's final grooming. Thin shadows cast by the shrubs lean across the patterns, creating soft contrasts that shift only when the breeze touches them. A few guards walk the perimeter of the castle, but their steps are slow and measured. The soles of their sandals press gently into the gravel, producing a soft crunch that quickly fades into the night. They carry simple lanterns mounted on poles, the flames enclosed in protective frames that keep the light steady. Their silence is not one of vigilance, but of respect for the hour. They pass one another with small nods, exchanging quiet acknowledgments without a single spoken word. On the veranda of a side building within the castle grounds, a scribe continues his late-night work. His table is small and neatly organized, holding scrolls, brushes, and an inkstone. The lantern beside him flickers gently but steadily. When he grinds the ink, the stone produces a soft, circular rasping sound, deliberate and slow. He dips his brush and writes with even strokes, forming characters that stretch across the scroll with calm fluidity. His breathing matches the pace of his writing, long and even. Nearby, in another wing of the castle, a small group of attendants prepares bedding for their lord's chambers. They move quietly, smoothing quilts and adjusting pillows with careful precision. The tatami mats beneath them creak softly when they shift their positions. A faint scent of cedar drifts through the room, coming from freshly polished wooden beams and from the incense burned earlier to honor the spirit of the residents. The attendants' motions are unhurried, shaped by years of familiarity with their nightly duties. Outside the castle walls, the town rests peacefully. The sounds from within the houses grow fainter as more lanterns dim. Tatami mats shift lightly as families settle. Wooden doors give soft clicks as they slide into their frames. The wind moves gently between the homes, wrapping the narrow streets in cool currents that carry faint echoes of the canal. Farther along the town's perimeter, beyond a row of small workshops, a blacksmith's forge lies completely dark. The anvil rests in deep shadow, the furnace cold and calm after the day's work. Tools hang neatly on their hooks, hammers, tongs, chisels, still faintly warm from the earlier fires, though cooling steadily in the night air. The faint metallic scent lingers around the forge, softened by the surrounding quiet. Up the slope, the castle tower cuts a serene figure against the deep blue sky. Stars glimmer faintly behind it. The moon shines full and unobstructed, brushing the wooden roofs with a sheet of pale light. The castle looks peaceful, not imposing, but at rest like a mountain carved from the night itself. The entire town sleeps under that quiet, watchful presence. Wind sighs through the eaves. Water murmurs under the bridges. Lanterns flicker with slow, rhythmic calm. Everything is still, soft, deeply settled. The castle town breathes in harmony with the night. The castle town rests beneath the vast sweep of the night sky, enveloped in a deep, tranquil stillness that feels both protective and timeless. The moon hangs high above the layered rooftops, casting its pale, velvety light across wooden beams, stone paths, and the tiered silhouette of the castle tower. This light settles onto the town with gentleness, softening every corner, every wall, every shadow until the entire settlement appears to float quietly within a calm ocean of blue and silver. At the outer gate, the tall wooden doors stand firm and unmoving, their broad surfaces polished smooth by years of hands pushing them open at sunrise and securing them at sunset. Tonight, they rest in complete repose. 2 lanterns fixed to the posts burn steadily, their flames wrapped in translucent paper. The glow from these lanterns is subtle and patient, illuminating only a small portion of the entryway. The wooden posts themselves appear almost alive under this light, grain patterns shifting gently, knots catching the glow in soft rings. Just beyond the gate, the wide main road stretches into the heart of the town. During daylight, this road bustles with merchants, carts, and the steady hum of commerce. But now, in the softness of night, it feels vast and open. The wooden stalls lining the street form neat rows of muted shapes. Their awnings, tied down carefully, move faintly with the breeze, creating soft, repetitive rustles. Some stalls hold jars covered with cloths, others display only the faint silhouettes of goods stored beneath panels. The smells of the day linger only in delicate traces, hints of dried fish, roasted chestnuts, fresh-cut bamboo, and cloth dyed with indigo. These scents drift now as faint memories, wrapped gently by the cool night air. Lanterns affixed to eaves cast a warm glow downward, illuminating sections of the road in uneven, gentle patches. In these warm pools of light, floating particles of dust drift slowly, rising and falling like weightless motes suspended in honey. The faint shimmer of lantern light reflects on the slightly uneven surface of the street, which is still damp in places from the evening's humidity. Where the lantern light fades, the street transitions seamlessly into soft shadow, blending with the quiet sky above. Narrow side paths branch off from the main road, weaving between small houses and workshops. These paths are lined with wooden fences and stepping stones, their surfaces cool and slightly wet with dew. The homes along these paths glow softly from within. Their rice paper screens diffuse lamplight into gentle, rounded forms that stretch across the verandas. Some screens show silhouettes, the movement of hands preparing bedding, the tilt of someone pouring a final cup of tea, the subtle bent figure of someone adjusting a lantern wick before retiring. None of these silhouettes move hurriedly, they glide slowly, as though the night itself guides their pace. A small canal runs steadily through the town, the water flowing smoothly beneath curved stone bridges. The canal carries reflections of lanterns, moonlight, and dim window glows along its surface. These reflections stretch and tremble gently with the current, forming wavering lines of gold and silver that shift effortlessly. When the mist from upstream drifts over the water, the reflections blur into soft halos that glide like faint dreams along the channel. The sound of the water is steady, soothing, an ever-present murmur that cushions the town in a low, melodic hum. On one of the bridges, a guard sits quietly in the entrance of a small outpost. His lantern burns low, its flame steady and warm. He polishes the wooden shaft of his spear with gentle, rhythmic motions. The metal tip catches the lantern light occasionally, producing soft flashes. His armor sits neatly on a rack beside him, its lacquered plates gleaming faintly. In lighter robes, the guard appears relaxed, content to breathe in the cool night air while fulfilling his watch. The quiet tune he hums is slow and wandering, drifting into the canal's gentle murmur and blending so naturally with it that the two sounds seem to weave around each other in easy harmony. The castle itself rises at the far end of the main road, its form both strong and serene. The stone foundation glows faintly under the moonlight, each rock carrying shadows in its crevices like soft ink washes. Above, wooden beams mark the edges of layered rooftops. Each tier extends outward with elegant curves, their ends curling ever so slightly upward in graceful arcs. The moon highlights these edges in soft silver, forming thin lines that trace each roof in quiet definition. The castle does not dominate the town. It stands with quiet dignity, like a mountain that has chosen stillness over grandeur. Inside the castle gates, the courtyard lies open and expansive. The gravel paths are cool beneath the night air, each tiny stone catching the faintest glint of lantern light. The nearby garden, meticulously tended, breathes with the calm of deep night. Large stones placed with thoughtful precision cast soft shadows on the raked sand. The patterns in the sand, broad, swirling arcs, create a sense of slow movement, even though they remain perfectly undisturbed. Small shrubs trimmed earlier in the day hold droplets of dew along their leaves, which glow faintly with reflected light. Guards walking along the courtyard perimeter move with quiet discipline, the soles of their sandals whispering over the gravel. Each step produces a soft crunch, the sound absorbed quickly by the open air. Their lanterns sway slightly as they walk, the enclosed flames casting gentle arcs of muted gold along the path. They do not speak, but share respectful nods as they pass. Their night watch feels less like a duty of vigilance and more like a calm stewardship of a peaceful space. Within a side building of the castle, a scribe continues his nightly work. His small wooden table is lit by a single lantern, the flame contained within a square paper frame. As he grinds the ink on the smooth stone, the sound is rounded and soft, a faint rasp that repeats in steady circles. The ink grows darker with each motion. He dips his brush with care, drawing slow, deliberate characters across a fresh scroll. The brush glides smoothly, leaving dark trails that curve and stretch with elegance. The scribe pauses after each line, allowing his breath to settle before beginning the next. In another wing, attendants move with careful intention as they prepare their lord's sleeping quarters. The bedding is arranged meticulously. Soft quilts smoothed with gentle hands, pillows placed precisely. The wooden beams above hold the faint scent of cedar, which mixes with the residual fragrance of incense from an earlier offering. As the attendants work, the fabric makes quiet rustling sounds, and the tatami mats give soft creaks under their careful steps. When the lantern light shifts, shadows stretch long across the room, forming subtle, wavering patterns that seem to breathe with the attendants' motions. Outside the castle walls, the houses of the town continue to settle into deeper rest. More lanterns dim behind paper screens. More silhouettes grow still. Doors slide shut with soft clicks that vanish quickly into the night. The canal murmurs steadily, its sound becoming a gentle undercurrent that connects every part of the settlement with quiet continuity. Beyond the blacksmith's darkened forge, where tools rest peacefully in their assigned places, cooling in the night air, the hillside rises in a gradual, calm ascent. The trees along the slope gather moonlight in their leaves, creating pale highlights along their edges. As the wind travels through the branches, the leaves rustle in a soft chorus of shifting tones. The castle tower stands in quiet prominence above it all. The wooden beams, the layered roofs, the delicate ridges of tile, all glow faintly under the moon's steady, unwavering gaze. The sky behind it is deep and clear, dotted with faint stars that blink in slow, steady rhythm as though breathing with the night. The castle town feels held, resting beneath the moon, guided by the river's quiet flow, surrounded by hills and forest and the soft glow of lanterns. Nothing moves quickly. Nothing disturbs the gentle balance. Every building, every path, every quiet heartbeat of light and shadow settles deeper into the night's soothing embrace. The last hours before dawn, the night has grown long and deep, settling into its quietest, most tender hours. Across medieval Japan's peaceful landscape, through the village, the rice fields, the forest, the temple, the river, and the castle town, everything slows into a single, shared breath. These hours just before dawn carry a softness unlike any other, as though the world is wrapped in a thin veil of calm that mutes every sound, dims every shadow, and smooths every movement into something that drifts rather than walks, glows rather than shines. The air is cooler now, carrying the faint hint of morning that has not yet arrived. It brushes gently across rooftops and fields, slipping quietly under doors and through narrow lanes. Dew gathers more heavily on leaves, rooftops, and stones. Each droplet glistens faintly under the moon's last steady light, turning gardens and pathways into mosaics of tiny, shimmering beads. When the breeze moves, the droplets tremble delicately, catching small glimmers of silver before settling again. In the village, most lanterns have burned down to faint embers or gone out completely. The homes lie in deep shadow, softened only by the pale spill of moonlight filtering through paper screens. Inside, the quiet is absolute. Families sleep on their futons in peaceful stillness, their breathing steady and undisturbed. The tatami mats beneath them hold the day's faint warmth, mixing with the cool air drifting gently through cracked shutters. Even the village animals, cats curled into soft shapes on the veranda, dogs curled near the hearth, rest without stirring, lulled by the deep serenity of the hour. Outside, the narrow paths are empty. The village well stands silent under the moon, its bucket swaying only slightly when the breeze reaches it. The sound is soft, a slow, rhythmic tap against the wood that echoes just enough to be heard and then dissolve instantly into the dark. The bamboo groves nearby sway lightly, producing a calming, whisper-like rustle. These natural sounds create a quiet tapestry that fills the village with gentle presence without ever breaking the stillness. Beyond the village, the rice fields lie under a thin blanket of mist. The mist has thickened through the night, rising from the warmer water to hover just above the surface. It drifts slowly in soft, shallow waves, shifting when touched by the wind. The rice shoots poke through in delicate rows, their tips shimmering faintly with dew. The water beneath them mirrors the sky in a blurred reflection, moonlight diffused into pale streaks that stretch along the paddies. Frogs have quieted now, their calls reduced to occasional soft croaks that blend into the steady hush of the night. The forest, too, rests in its deepest quiet. The trees stand motionless except for the smallest stirring of leaves along the highest branches. The stream continues its slow movement, gliding over pebbles in a barely audible murmur. Ferns remain still, their fronds suspended in the cool air. An owl perched on a high branch blinks slowly, its feathers puffed to guard against the chill. For long stretches of time, it remains completely motionless, as if the forest itself has lulled even its keen senses into calm. The hillside temple sits gently in the dark, its lone lantern burning low. The flame inside flickers lightly, its glow dimmed to a soft, subdued warmth. The monks sleep in their small rooms, their breaths quiet and deep. The garden rests untouched, sand patterns still perfect in the faintest touch of moonlight. Even the water basin's dripping rhythm has slowed, each drop falling with long pauses between, the ripples spreading softly before fading fully into still water once more. Along the river, the mist has thickened into a soft blanket that hovers above the surface. The wooden dock peeks through in pale silhouette, and the tide boat rocks gently with the faint movement of current. The reeds sway lightly, their whispers blending with the almost silent flow of water. Reflections in the river have become blurred into long stretches of muted silver, flowing slowly toward the distant bend. Fireflies have mostly disappeared, but a few remain, their tiny lights pulsing at long intervals like fading stars descending toward sleep. Farther away, the castle town rests in a profound hush. The tall gate stands closed, the lanterns beside it nearly burned to their last embers. In the main road, stalls remain covered and untouched, their awnings motionless. The canal water glides on, nearly soundless, its reflections faint and diffused. The last few lights in homes have dimmed or gone out entirely, leaving only soft silhouettes of rooftops beneath the moon. The scribe has rolled up his scroll, his inkstone cleaned, his lamplight extinguished. The guards in the courtyard walk slower now, their lanterns dim, their pace matching the softness of the hour. The castle tower rises above it all, serene and still, its wooden roofs glowing faintly in the pale light drifting from the sky. Across the entire landscape, the night deepens into the final, most peaceful stretch before dawn's first light appears. It is a moment suspended between dreams and waking, where the world feels held gently in balance, unmoving, whispering calm. The air rests, the land rests, the water rests. Everything holds its breath, waiting for the softest hint of morning. Nothing urges forward, nothing stirs abruptly. The night lingers, patient and tender. These are the last quiet hours, when the world feels impossibly still, and time flows as gently as mist drifting over a moonlit field. The final stretch of night settles over medieval Japan like a soft, enfolding blanket, thick with calm, weighted with quiet, and perfectly still. These hours before dawn belong to silence itself. Even the moon, now drifting lower across the sky, seems to dim its glow so as not to disturb the world below. The darkness is no longer deep and heavy. Instead, it has become gentle, softened by the first subtle hints of the coming morning, though no light yet breaks the horizon. The air carries this softness with ease. It moves slowly through fields and forests, slipping along rooftops and through narrow pathways, brushing lightly across wooden beams and woven screens. It has cooled noticeably, carrying a clean freshness that settles gently into the villages and surrounding lands. Dew has formed everywhere in abundance, on leaves, on stones, on rooftops, on sandals left outside, and each droplet holds a faint shimmer as moonlight kisses it. These beads of moisture make the world glisten in tiny, delicate points of silver. In the village, the quiet has reached its deepest point. Entire households lie in peaceful slumber. Within each wooden home, the soft rise and fall of steady breathing creates a barely noticeable rhythm, one futon, then another, and another. It is a silent lullaby made of life itself, tender and slow. Tatami mats feel cool beneath the sleepers. Cotton blankets, warmed earlier by the last embers of the hearth, hold their warmth for only a little longer, slowly cooling as the night deepens. The hearths, now nothing more than faint glows, release slow ribbons of warmth into the air. The ashes have settled into gentle mounds, faint flecks of red ember still visible in their centers. The faint scent of smoke lingers inside the homes, creating a warm, grounded atmosphere, like the lingering embrace of the day that has already passed. Outside, the narrow paths that weave between the homes rest in serene stillness. The packed earth seems to hold the coolness of night in its surface. Stones embedded in the paths are slick with dew, reflecting pinpoints of moonlight wherever the angle allows. Wooden sandals left neatly beside doorways glisten softly, droplets forming along their straps. The wood grain shines faintly beneath this layer of moisture, giving each pair a look of polished calm. The well stands tall in the village center, the bucket hanging steady and still. The rope has absorbed some of the night's dampness, making it darker and weightier. When the breeze moves gently through the empty square, the bucket shifts only a little, producing a sound so faint it seems like a memory. A soft, wooden knock that echoes lightly and then disappears into silence. Around the edges of the village, the bamboo groves sway slightly in the fading wind. The leaves, now coated in dew, brush against each other with soft, whispering sounds. Each whisper falls into the next, creating a quiet chorus that blends seamlessly into the darkness. The grove seems to breathe, leaves rising and settling, stems bending and returning in slow cycles that mirror the rhythm of night itself. Beyond the homes, the rice fields lie beneath a thick, lingering mist. The mist hovers low, hugging the water-filled paddies with a tender, pale glow. It moves like a living veil, drifting slowly, rising just a little, folding back into itself, then stretching outward again. Its movements are so gentle they feel like sighs, soft exhalations of the earth waiting for the sun. The rice shoots stand silently within this veil, their stems cool and wet. Dew clings heavily to their slender leaves, bending some slightly under its delicate weight. The water beneath them mirrors the faint moonlight in long, wavering ribbons. Where frogs had called earlier, their voices have quieted now, leaving only occasional soft croaks in the far distance, spaced widely apart, like echoes fading into dreams. The forest beyond rests in its most profound stillness. Trees stand tall and unmoving, their branches barely stirring. The scent of damp earth rises softly from the forest floor, mixing with the calming fragrance of cedar and pine. Moss-covered stones gleam under the moonlight, their surfaces cool and luminous. The small stream that winds through the trees flows with quiet persistence. Its murmur is almost imperceptible at first, but listening closely reveals the delicate melody of water slipping between stones, gentle and unbroken. An owl perched high on a branch observes the world with slow, blinking eyes. Its feathers, puffed slightly to warm against the chill, catch faint silver highlights. Every so often, it turns its head in a smooth, near-silent motion. But even this movement feels dreamlike, part of the forest's slow, suspended rhythm. When the owl eventually calls out, a soft, hollow note, it echoes through the trees, but the sound is gentle, rounded, and deeply calming. The hillside temple rests in a rare quiet as well. The single lantern near the entrance burns low, its flame dancing with only the smallest movements of air. Most monks are sound asleep, their breaths soft and deep. Their rooms, lit only by faint moonlight slipping through narrow windows, feel like sanctuaries of peace. Tatami mats are cool beneath their blankets, the smell of incense lingering just enough to calm the senses even in sleep. Outside, the water basin drips more slowly now. Each drop falls with long pauses in between, the sound a soft, barely audible click. The ripples move outward in wider, weaker circles before settling fully into stillness. The sand garden remains untouched, the patterns carved earlier in the day now illuminated faintly by moonlight that filters through the branches above. Down by the river, the mist has thickened almost into fog. It rests across the water in long, low layers, obscuring the far bank. The river itself continues its steady flow, though quieter now, its sound subdued by the dense mist that absorbs and softens every ripple. The wooden dock stands half hidden in the haze. Its posts appear like faint silhouettes, and the tide boat rocks so gently that its movement is barely visible. The lantern carried earlier by a villager has been taken home. Only moonlight remains to illuminate the river now. Occasional fireflies drift in slow, floating paths above the water. Their lights blink softly at long intervals, glowing through the mist like tiny stars caught in drifting clouds. Sometimes one will hover near the dock, its pulse brightening and fading while mirrored faintly in the blurred reflection below. The combination of mist, water, and light creates an atmosphere that feels otherworldly, a place where air and river and sky melt quietly into one another. Farther off, the castle town lies in the deepest reach of sleep. Only a few lanterns remain glowing along the streets, their lights dim and wavering. The rest have already burned out, leaving the wooden stalls, houses, and canal pathways bathed in cool moonlight. The castle tower stands watchful but serene, its layered roofs etched faintly in silver. Guards walk even more slowly now, their lanterns nearly extinguished. Their footsteps on the gravel produce quieter sounds, softened by the night's chill and by their own fatigue. Every part of the castle town's routine has paused. Workshops are still, kitchens dark, scrolls neatly rolled and stored, tools set aside. Courtyards empty. The entire settlement breathes in a collective rest, wrapped in a hush that feels sacred. Across the region, the night's final hours deepen. No sound breaks sharply. No movement disturbs the gentle suspension. The world feels light, delicate, and drifting, poised just before the soft arrival of dawn. Everything holds a deep calm. Everything waits in quiet balance. Everything rests in the slow, tender stillness that only the last hours before sunrise can bring. A gentle return to rest the night, stretched across medieval Japan in its long, soft hush, begins to loosen its hold. The deep blue sky lightens only a little, just enough to soften the darkness, to whisper that morning is near, though still far enough away that the world remains wrapped in quiet calm. Every place visited through the night, the village, the fields, the forest, the temple, the river, the castle town, rests together now in one shared breath of peace. The air stays cool, drifting slowly over rooftops, slipping beneath doorways, brushing lightly against the earth. Dew gathers thickly on every surface, shimmering in faint silver. The moon, low now, casts wide, gentle pools of pale light that spread across paths, across water, across the still outlines of sleeping homes. Nothing moves quickly. Nothing wakes. Everything remains suspended in a long, slow exhale. In the village, families sleep deeply, their futons warm against the cool tatami mats. The faint scents of the night, smoke, earth, rice, wood, linger softly in the quiet rooms. Outside, sandals wait by the doors untouched. The well stands motionless. The bamboo groves sway in slow, muted gestures. All of it rests, calm and unhurried. Over the rice fields, the mist remains spread across the paddies like a soft blanket. Little ripples drift across the water now and then, stirred by nothing more than the slow breathing of the land. Each rice shoot holds droplets of dew that tremble but never fall. The world feels weightless here, soft reflections floating gently, merging sky and earth into one peaceful quiet. Deep in the forest, every tree stands tall in a perfect stillness. The small stream continues its gentle murmur, steady and modest, a lullaby shaped by stone and time. The owl sleeps now, tucked into its high branch. Ferns remain unmoving. Moss glows faintly under the last traces of moonlight. The forest feels ancient and tender, its quiet stretching farther than the ear can reach. The hillside temple lies in the middle of this silence. The lantern near its doorway burns to its final moments, its flame shrinking into a soft ember. The monks sleep with slow, even breaths. The sand patterns in the garden remain untouched. The bamboo spout drips at long intervals, each drop spreading a single ripple across still water before settling again. The temple holds the night gently, like a place made for rest. Down by the river, the mist thickens one last time, curling low over the moving water. The wooden dock stands half-shrouded in pale folds. The tide boat drifts only enough to let the river know it is there. The reeds, heavy with dew, bow gently toward the current. Fireflies glow in slow, occasional pulses, small lights floating in the dreamlike haze. Everything here feels softened into calm, the river carrying the night forward with measured, endless ease. And farther still, the castle town sleeps beneath its watchful tower. The lanterns glow only in faint hints now, their last embers resting behind paper screens. The guards' final footsteps grow slow and muted. The wooden stalls are still. The canal reflects nothing but moonlight and mist. The castle itself stands quiet and composed, its layered roofs catching the last glow of night as if holding it in gentle hands. Across this landscape, the final hours before dawn are not hours at all. They are moments of stillness that blur softly into one another, moments where time feels unbound, where breath slows, where everything sinks deeply into a peaceful solitude. And now, as you drift with this world, as you rest within it, you feel your own breath begin to match its gentle rhythm. Slow, soft, unhurried. The night's calm settles around you, folds itself quietly over your thoughts, smooths away the last traces of wakefulness. The quiet scenes linger, the glow of lanterns, the soft brush of reeds, the stillness of temples, the hush of forests, the gentle pulse of river water. They drift at the edges of your mind, softening, flattening, lifting away until only calm remains. There is nothing to do now. Nowhere to go, nothing calling for attention. Just the night and its soft cradle. Just your breath, slow and steady. Just the quiet peace settling deeper and deeper. Let yourself sink into that stillness. Let your thoughts drift like mist over water. Let the hush of medieval Japan carry you gently toward rest. The world around you grows softer. Your breath moves slower. Your body grows heavy, comfortable, quiet. Sleep gathers around you like a warm, patient tide. And as dawn waits beyond the horizon, unrushed, unhurried, you drift into restful sleep. The night holds you. The calm holds you. Rest comes easily now. Sleep peacefully.